Hello and welcome back to my channel What If Deku. Join us as we explore the world of fanfiction and fantasy and bring you the best story and discussions. This is part 1 of What If Deku was in Class 1B and had Harem. So give this video a like and subscribe for more videos in future. So let's get into the fanfic. Izuku Midoriya stood in front of UA High School, arguably the best hero school in Japan. The school alumni are a who's who of great heroes, from All Might and Endeavor to Gang Orca and Mirko. Now it was Izuku's turn to enter these hallowed halls. He spent 10 hard months undergoing the grueling training plan All Might had created, in order to make Izuku a worthy vessel for the sacred torch. One for all. I'm the bearer of one for all now. I can't disappoint All Might. I have to pass this exam, thought Izuku, tightening his grip on his backpack. The prospective hero in training walked into UA, his confidence in the task to come rising. Stupid Deku, growled out a familiar voice coming from behind him. Izuku flinched at the tone and the venom in the words. Izuku turned, spotting his oldest friend Katsuki Bakugo. Izuku reflexively and subconsciously changed his posture, shrinking into himself to make himself look smaller. Taken, stuttered out Izuku using the old childhood nickname. Katsuki's ever-present glare intensified. Get out of my way, Deku, or I'll set you on fire, and call me that name again and I'll knock all your teeth out, stated Bakugo. Izuku, thoroughly intimidated and scared, immediately moved aside, replying incoherently as Bakugo passed without another word. Izuku sighed in relief. I'm lucky I didn't run into him on the way here, thought Izuku, even if Bakugo hasn't been beating on Izuku as much since the sludge villain incident. Bakugo still would occasionally berate him, attack him, or destroy his stuff. It could have been pretty bad if he was injured before the exam. Izuku let out another sigh. I can't keep being afraid of him. I'm not defenseless anymore, thought Izuku, remembering his training as he turns to continue walking. I have to remember all the work I put in. Thanks to All Might, I'm actually going to be a hero, thought Izuku, giving himself a pep talk, his confidence once again rising. Only for him to immediately trip. Or I'll just die, thought Izuku as he fell face first, closing his eyes in anticipation of hitting the ground. Squish. Izuku was thoroughly confused as to why the brick path felt so soft. Izuku pushed himself up, seeing that he had fallen onto a bed of mushrooms. Excuse me, are you alright? Stuttered a quiet female voice. Izuku turned toward the voice. Standing there was a girl that was shorter than him by at least a head, with shoulder-length honey brown hair which was styled in a mushroom-shaped bob with bangs long enough to hide her eyes and most of her face. She was wearing a gray hoodie that looked a size too big as it went past her waist. The hoodie depicted a line of Goombas marching. Along with this, she wore some tight-fitting pants and simple brown shoes. Altogether, Izuku thought she was incredibly cute. Izuku scrambled to get to his feet, a blush on his face. I am fine, spoke Izuku, starting to reply only for the chiming of the PA system to cut him off. All exam candidates please enter the auditorium. The presentation for the exam will begin shortly, announced a robotic voice from the speakers. Hey, come on, let's go, we can't be late, spoke a tall young man that had pitch black skin with fluffy white hair and black eyes, who was wearing a dark peacoat, dark jeans, and a pair of black boots. The boy started to walk away as soon as he was done talking. The teen threw an irritated glare at Izuku. The girl seemed hesitant to leave, quickly looking back and forth between the retreating form of the dark teen and Izuku. With a bow, she spoke quickly but in such a quiet tone that Izuku almost didn't hear her. Go. Good luck, she stuttered as she ran to catch up with the dark-skinned teen. Izuku's face was covered in a deep blush. I talked to a girl, thought Izuku excitedly. Then he remembered. The exam, thought Izuku in alarm, running into the main building as to not be late. The exam orientation did not go well for Izuku. To start, he was seated right next to Bakugo. This resulted in him being on edge. But once President Mike showed up, Izuku descended into an excited muttering spree at seeing the pro that hosted one of his favorite radio shows. Izuku's muttering was brought to a stop when a tall blue-haired boy several rows in front of him berated him for his muttering in front of the entire auditorium, which caused most in the room to laugh at him. At least there was a silver lining. He wasn't placed in the same testing site as Bakugo. The blonde bully even commented on this, saying, "TCH, you're lucky we're in different test areas, Deku. I would have put you in a crater," threatened Bakugo aggressively. After the presentation was the written exam, which was a lengthy exam ranging from math and sciences to hero law, history, ethical questions, and a hypothetical scenario essay question about a rescue hero. At the moment, Izuku stood in front of Battle Zone Beta in his blue tracksuit. The nervous green-haired boy stood near the back of the pack trying to psych himself up for the battle to come, which he was failing at spectacularly as his body was shaking with nerves. With an audible gulp, he looked around at the other examinees to try and distract himself. How come none of these guys seem nervous at all? Are they that confident? Well, some of them even have special gear, thought Izuku as he looked through the crowd. He noticed a familiar bob cut. Hey, it's her, the nice girl who kept me from getting hurt when I fell. I never got to thank her for helping me. I should thank her properly and wish her good luck, spoke Izuku in his mind, as he willed his body to walk toward the girl. He only got a few steps before a hand was placed on his shoulder. Izuku internally freaked out when he came face to face with the tall boy that called him out earlier. She looks like she's trying to focus on the exam. What are you gonna do? Distract her and ruin her chances to succeed, accused the taller blue-haired boy. Izuku immediately started to try and defend himself. This drew the attention of some of the other examinees in the crowd. Izuku could hear them recognize him. They started to dismiss him as any sort of competition. I guess everyone has already written me off, thought Izuku as the blue-haired boy looked at him in disapproval, seemingly not noticing the crowd's comments. Alright, let's start. There are no countdowns in a real battle. Get a move on, little listeners, yelled President Mike. Most of the other examinees were already running into the zone. Izuku broke out into a run as he followed after the other examinees. Suddenly a 1PT robot broke out of a building in front of him. The dark green machine locked onto him. Target acquired, destroy, spoke the robot as it rushed Izuku, its single wheel spinning rapidly. Izuku knew he needed to dodge, but his feet wouldn't move. Before the one-pointer could connect a punch, it was crushed under a giant hand, much like a person might crush a bug. Hey, are you alright? Asked a girl who looked a little taller than him with teal eyes and ginger hair that was done in a high ponytail on the left side of her head. She was wearing a martial art gi. Why, yes thank you, spoke Izuku. The girl smiled at him, which caused his face to heat up. No problem, good luck, responded the girl as she quickly ran down the street in search of more robots. Before Izuku could get distracted at the fact he talked to another pretty girl. 6 minutes and 2 seconds left, called out President Mike. Freaking out, Izuku broke out into a full-blown sprint and began desperately searching for any of the robots. He ran down streets and through alleys but only found destroyed robots. Some melted, others slashed to pieces. Some were even covered in mushrooms. He eventually got to the main street for the mock city, which was packed with examinees and robots. Many of the examinees were calling out their total points. Izuku frantically looked for a robot for himself. He spotted a 2-pointer crawling down the side of a building, but it was fast approaching a blonde-haired girl with large horns and a tail, who hadn't noticed the fast-approaching enemy. Izuku broke out into a dead sprint and his eyes full of steely determination. As Izuku got closer, the 2-pointer leaped off the building posed to strike the girl. Kill target, bellowed the machine mid-leap. Everything felt like it was going in slow motion. The girl turning around, eyes widening in surprise. Izuku tackled the girl, narrowing, evading the robot as it crashed onto the asphalt. The two teens landed on the sidewalk with a light thud with Izuku on top. Izuku looked down at the girl. His eyes immediately locked with her big blue eyes. Are you okay? Asked Izuku with pure concern in his eyes. Izuku's normal stutter was nowhere to be found as he was in his hero mode. The girl looked up at him for a moment, her cheeks tinted slightly red. Before her eyes shifted to look behind him, they widened in alarm. The girl grabbed hold of Izuku and forced them to roll out of the way, just as the scorpion-like villain robot stabbed its teaser tail into their previous location. The two prospective heroes came to a stop. But this time the girl was on top of Izuku. The girl quickly sat up, causing her to straddle Izuku. Horn cannon, yelled out the girl in English, her hands on the sides of her head. The horns on her head launched out at a great speed, being replaced by a new pair almost instantly. The launched horns acted like missiles. They changed direction and impacted the 2-pointer, penetrating its head and coming out the other side. The horns then banked around and hovered above the girl's head as the 2-pointer crumbled to the ground. She stood up and hesitantly extended a hand down to Izuku, who was currently looking at her in awe and curiosity. She shifted on her feet nervously, causing Izuku to notice that she had hooves for feet. Thank you for the save. I'm fine thanks to you, spoke the girl, clearly not confident in her Japanese as she slipped back into her native tongue. But she still had a small smile on her face. Izuku accepted her hand as she helped him stand. Yo, you're welcome. I am just glad you're okay, replied Izuku in English with a small smile. The girl seemed surprised. A large smile broke out on her face as she went from nervous to excited rapidly. In a dark room full of monitors depicting the various battle zones and the examinees sits the staff of UA. Clearly the examinees have no idea on how many villain bots are present or their locations. They have limited time, must cover a vast area, and hunt down every last target. Some gather information to plan a strategy. Others use speed to outpace their peers. Of course, staying calm under pressure can also be a huge advantage, as can pure battle prowess and combat ability. The best students use a combination of all these tactics. This allows them to gather the most points. Explained Principal Nezu as the mouse, dog bear creature sipped from a glass of tea as he looked at the screens showing the different battlegrounds. Thank you for the explanation, Principal Nezu. The test has certainly changed since I took it, spoke All Might, who was seated next to the principal. This year's group certainly looks promising, and some of them look so delicious, commented Midnight in a sultry tone. Yeah, look at that examinee. He's been tearing through bots since the start and hasn't slowed down, commented 13, gesturing to Bakugo standing on top of a pile of villain bots. There's still time left before it's over. The real test starts now. Let's see how they react, stated Power Loader as he pressed a big red button. The sound tank of trends and small explosions cut off the blonde girl before she could speak again. All the examinees looked up at the zero-pointer. The robot loomed above them. Even hunched over, it stood taller than the nearby buildings, one of its hands crushing the top of a building, causing dust and debris to fall onto the street below. That's the zero-pointer, questioned the girl, clearly scared. The zero-pointer then proceeds to punch the street, kicking up a large cloud of dust and wind. Izuku shielded his eyes. The blast of dust stopped and Izuku looked up at the zero-pointer as he fell on his butt. He heard screams and shouts as the other examinees were running away. All of them ignored him, including the orange-haired girl that saved him earlier. The blue-haired boy that berated him also ran by with barely a glance at Izuku. Come on, we have to run, yelled the blonde girl as she hoisted Izuku to his feet with ease, and started to pull him along. Back in the control room, All Might was on the edge of his seat, his eyes flicking from one screen to another. I see, this is where things get interesting. A person's true character is revealed when they're faced with danger, spoke All Might in the observation room. All Might spotted his successor being dragged away from danger by a girl with horse-like features. Maybe I should have put some combat training into Izuku's training regime, thought All Might, feeling foolish that he didn't think of that sooner. Less than 2 minutes remaining, announced President Mike. 2 minutes. I have to find some smaller villains or all that training will be wasted, thought Izuku in a panic, and he was still being semi-dragged by the blonde. OOWW, cried out a voice. Izuku froze at the sound, causing him to slip from the blonde girl's grasp. He looked back, seeing the brown-haired girl from the school gate. She was partially trapped under rubble, the trends of the zero-pointer approaching quickly from behind her. The interaction with her from this morning flashing through his head. Izuku knew that he didn't have enough time to dig her out. That's when she looked up, letting Izuku see her unique eyes that were screaming out for help as their gazes meet. His body moved on its own once again as he ran toward the zero-pointer with A. The blonde girl, now noticing his absence, turns around to see him sprinting toward the zero-pointer. All Might watched as Izuku ran toward the zero-pointer at full speed. There are no combat points for taking on a humongous villain, but there is an opportunity, a chance to shine, spoke All Might as he watched Izuku's form blur as he executed a powerful jump, which shot him high into the air and blew the dust away, causing the other staff's eyes to widen. To show what you're really made of, continued All Might, his eyes glued to Izuku as the boy cocked his now glowing right fist back, the power of OFA tearing his sleeve to shreds up to his shoulder. Izuku continued higher as he approached the robot's head. The words of advice that All Might had given him that morning echo through Izuku's head. So, clench your butt cheeks and yell from the depths of your heart, recalled Izuku as he reached the robot's head. Smash, yelled Izuku, his fist connecting with the robot's head, caving it inwards and breaking what would be the robot's neck. The zero-pointer was pushed back more than a block and began to fall over as explosions rippled throughout its body. All the other examinees looked on in stunned silence as they watched the boy that most of them had written off defeat the robot that had them all running scared. All Might nearly split open from his massive grin, as the rest of the staff were in shock, except for Nezu, who had his arms raised in a cheer, and Aizawa, who simply narrowed his eyes in disapproval. That's right, show who you are, embody what it means to be a hero. Nothing is nobler than self-sacrifice, yelled All Might as he stood buffing up in excitement, a hint of pride in his words. Just 1 minute left, yelled out President Mike, just as gravity started to remind Izuku who was boss. Izuku started to rapidly approach the ground. Izuku desperately tried to think of a way to save himself, after realizing his arm and legs were broken. His eyes were filled with tears as he fell. Suddenly, as he was only a few stores up, the body of the horse girl who was riding on top of a pair of her own horns collided into him, slowing him down. But Izuku quickly realized it wasn't enough to completely stop them. Izuku used his remaining good arm to turn them around so he would hit the pavement first. Thankfully, they landed in a massive pile of mushrooms, which acted as a massive cushion to slow them down further. Izuku hit the ground hard enough to knock the wind out of him, and he was pretty sure he heard a snap sound come from his ribs. "I'm alive, they saved me," thought Izuku as he looked at the blonde girl on top of him and the mushroom girl who was being helped up by the orange-haired girl. But he remembered he still had 0 points. "I need to move. I still have a chance to at least get 1 point before it ends," spoke Izuku, trying to get his body to move. The 3 girls heard Izuku clearly, watching as he desperately tried to move. "Time's up," yelled President Mike, as a siren echoed throughout the test area, marking the end of the exam. Devastated, Izuku sobbed before the pain of his injuries finally overwhelmed him and he slipped into unconsciousness. Those who had seen Izuku's display walked closer but still gave him some breathing room. Pony untangled herself from Izuku and stood. She was bruised and bleeding slightly, but she was okay. "Very nice. Good work all around. All of you are heroes in my eyes, every one of you. Here, reward yourselves. Have some gummies," spoke Recovery Girl as she handed an examinee some candy. As she started to walk toward Izuku and took a quick look at his injuries. "Oh my goodness, you were this hurt by your own quirk, Sonny," spoke Recovery, making mental notes on the extent of his injuries before her lips stretched out and gave Izuku's forehead a smooch. Green lights surrounded Izuku's injuries, and those around watched as before their eyes the mangle and broken limbs healed before their very eyes. "All right, he'll be fine now. Is there anyone else who's injured?" spoke Recovery Girl. "Her legs hurt and she's bleeding," spoke the orange hair girl, gesturing to the horse girl and the brown haired she was helping to stand. Recovery Girl quickly gave each girl a quick kiss on the cheek, after which she went around healing the examinees. The 3 girls watched as Izuku was loaded onto a stretcher by a pair of little robots. All 3 of them had looks of resolve on their faces as they watched Izuku be carried away. A few days later, the staff all sat in a meeting room going over the footage from the exams. They had already cut most of the examinees who didn't meet the benchmark. Currently, they are awarding hero points and discussing placement into a class and department. Nezu brought up a picture of Izuku on a large TV screen that was on the wall. All right, next is Izuku Midoriya. He scored perfect marks on the written exam. For the practical, he scored 0 villain points. However, we have 3 incidents where rescue points could be awarded. "Please look over his file before we begin," spoke Nezu. The teachers all looked at their tablets reviewing Izuku's file. "Nezu, there seems to be an error with Midoriya's file. It marks him as quirkless," spoke Power Loader. This brought the other staff's attention to that portion of the file. A smirk grew on Nezu's face. "That is not an error, Power Loader. Izuku Midoriya, it would seem, is a late bloomer," informed Nezu. This caused some of the teachers' eyes to go wide. "Wait, so you're telling us he came into the exam quirkless?" asked Snipe, disbelief clear in his voice. "That takes a good deal of courage," commented Vlad, King respect in his tone. "More like a great deal of foolishness," commented Eraserhead, his tone clearly portraying his thoughts. "In my experience, heroes tend to be foolish and stubborn," retorted Vlad, his eyes narrowed at the logic-obsessed hero. Eraserhead answers Vlad's action with a glare. "Let us return to the task at hand. The first is him recusing Pony Tsunotori from a 2-pointer, spoke Nezu, diffusing the tension between the 2 pros somewhat and moving the meeting forward. Nezu changed the screen, shifting the image to show the video of Izuku saving Pony. After watching the video through on loop, some of the staff spoke. "Seems pretty textbook to me. Instead of going for the points, he chose to save her," stated Snipe, the cowboy-themed hero, adjusting his gas mask while he spoke. "A little sloppy after the initial save. He should have gotten them out of danger sooner. But they are here to learn after all," commented Cementos, a kind expression on his face. A classic example of a heroic move. "The little listeners certainly earned the C's," added President Mike, speaking much too loud, as his hands moved about erratically as he talked. When no one else spoke, Nezu smiled. "Then it's decided Izuku will be awarded 20 rescue points. Now we will move on to Izuku's defeat of the 0-pointer and the aftermath," spoke Nezu as the scene started to show the incident on a loop from multiple angles. "Oh, the way he jumps into action, without hesitation. Despite his clear fear, that youth-filled courage. It's so invigorating." I give him full points, spoke Midnight, as she licks her lips and rubs her thighs together, both actions that her colleagues promptly try and ignore. He chose to rush and save the girl instead of running to secure the villain points he desperately needed. Full points, spoke Ectoplasm with a stiff nod. He quickly discerned that he couldn't free the girl from the rubble in time, so he chose to eliminate the threat instead. This shows a good level of situational thinking, rapid dissection making, and a heroic mentality. Full points, spoke Nezu evaluating Izuku's actions. He willingly put himself in danger to save someone else. To not call that heroic would be shameful. Spoke 13 as she tapped her fingers on her tablet reading through Izuku's file again. Self-sacrifice is the core of what it means to be a hero. Rough, full points, growled out Hound Dog as he wrote note into Izuku's file for future use. Even while he was injured and most likely in excoriating pain, he made it so he'd take the brunt of the fall instead of the girl. To make that decision in his condition. Full points, commented Vlad King, impressed with Izuku's actions. Snipe and Cementos both nodded in agreement with their co-workers. When no one spoke, Nezu brought up Izuku's total points. Onto the big screen, Eraserhead seemed displeased. Then Izuku Midoriya will be awarded 60 rescue points for saving Kinko Komori, and an additional 30 for planning to shield Pony from the brunt of the fall. This brings his total up to 110 rescue points, more than enough to place in number 1 spot for the practical, and has earned a spot in the hero course. Now I believe he should be placed in class 1 as spoke Nezu before Erasure cut him off. I refuse to have him in my class, stated Eraserhead bluntly. Oh, care to explain your reasoning, Aizawa? Asked Nezu, a clear and dangerous glint in the principal's eyes. Yeah, Erasure, what gives? Asked President Mike, confused about his sleep-deprived friend. I believe that someone like him shouldn't be accepted into this school, let alone the hero course, and especially not my class. He literally manifested his quirk during the exam. He has no control over his quirk. He broke his body with that stunt in a real fight. He'd be nothing more a liability. He'll have to rely on someone else to save him after his body becomes useless. There is no way he can become a hero. If you want to accept him, then stick him in the Gen Ed course. If he gains control of that impractical quirk of his, sure, let him try for the hero course. In the meantime, there are other candidates that have better control and are more qualified. Spoke Erasure, spelling out exactly why he thought Izuku should not be accepted. Vlad was visibly growing more frustrated as he heard more and more of the same points he'd heard when he was a kid for why he shouldn't have been a hero. That plus his and Erasure's conflicting teaching philosophies. All might seem uncertain about the growing tension. He looked to the other teachers and saw some sigh and exasperation. He quickly deduced that conflict between these two was somewhat common. Before the symbol of peace could attempt to quell the situation and defend his student, Vlad slammed a fist onto the meeting table as he stood interrupting Erasure, who glared at the other hero. So, what if he's got control issues, or his quirk is impractical? I heard the same excuses when I was young. Just because he doesn't match your opinion of a hero doesn't mean he should be rejected from the course. That's why we vote in the first place. That kid put in the work and earned his place in the hero course. If you don't want him in Class A, fine, then I'll have him in Class B. I'll give the kid a chance to prove you wrong. Bellowed out Vlad, clearly agitated with the, in his opinion, often hypocritical underground hero. That's enough. Both of you, or I'll have both of you grade all the seniors' graduation exams by yourselves. Threatened Nezu. Both heroes calmed down, still clearly agitated. Izuku Midoriya will be placed in Class 1B. With that said, to ensure fairness in the deciding of the remaining students. Erasure, is there a student from Class B you want in your class? Or would you prefer to simply take the next 2 accepted candidates? Asked Nezu once both the pros had calmed down. Erasure looked through Class B's roster. I'll take Netio Monoma, replied Erasure as the boys' file moved onto the screen. Approved. Monoma will be moved into Class 1A. How about we take a short break for lunch? When we return, we'll be reviewing Katsuki Bakugo, spoke Nezu. The teachers all stood and began to filter out of the room. Vlad, in particular, took his tablet so he could review the files of the students assigned to his class so far. As the blood-controlling hero looked through the files of his soon-to-be students, a smile grew on his face. I've got a good feeling about this year's class, spoke Vlad, already thinking about altering some of his lesson plans. It had been a week since the entrance exam, and Izuku was thoroughly freaking out over the lack of results. The fact he couldn't get a hold of All Might did not help his mental state. Izuku had basically been in a daze since returning home from the exam. All he did over the last few days was wake up, eat, work out, and watch hero news. He'd barely respond to his mother when she'd talk to him. Inko had been over the moon when Izuku initially came back from the exam and told her he manifested a quirk. She had started to cry and brought her son into a hug when he said his quirk was telekinetic in nature. However, her joy quickly vanished when she noticed Izuku's mood. Inko's worry reached a boiling point on the 7th day of Izuku's days. When they were eating lunch, she stopped eating halfway through the meal, placing her chopstick in the bowl and putting it to the side. "Izuku, honey, what's wrong?" asked her concern visible in her entire being. "Huh? I am fine, Mom," replied Izuku with what he thought looked like a genuine smile. Normally Inko would believe her son. She'd normally wait patiently for him to be ready to tell her what was bothering him. But she knew deep down that he'd never tell her. She wasn't going to let it slide. No, this time she was going to be stern. "Izuku Midoriya, you haven't been yourself since the exam. Please talk to me, tell me what's wrong," pleaded Inko. Izuku was planning on just dismissing his mother's concerns and reiterated that he was fine. But he made the mistake of looking into his mother's eyes. The overwhelming maternal concern in them caused guilty to take hold of him. "Please," spoke Inko, tears threatening to spill. Izuku's resistance crumbled, so with a deep breath, Izuku told his mother how the exam went, how he was laughed at and dismissed, how he hadn't gotten a single point, and how all he was able to do was save some people. He did, however, conveniently leave out how injured he'd gotten. By the end of his retelling, he was crying heavily. "Izuku, I'm so proud of you," spoke Inko, softly bringing her son into a hug. Her words clearly confused Izuku. He looked at her through tear-filled eyes. "You risked yourself to save people. That's what heroes do. If UA doesn't value that, then that's their loss. You'll be a hero whether you go to UA or not," spoke Inko, as she raised a hand and used her quirk to pull her cell phone from the kitchen counter over to her. "You really think so, Mom?" questioned Izuku as he rubbed his eyes, whipping away some tears. "Of course, UA is not the only top hero school in Japan," replied Inko, quickly brought something up on her phone and then showed her son. "There's Shiksu High School, and you're not limited to hero schools in Japan. There's Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, Wildcats Gym, Avengers Academy, Salem Hero Academy, Camelot Castle, Mythicos Academy, Valhalla Hero Academy, and Vulcan School for Heroes. If you don't get into UA, you can just take the test for one of these schools. You will be a hero. I'll help you however I can," spoke Inko, a determination in her eyes that mirrored her son's, as she showed her son information on the other hero schools. Izuku was quiet for a few moments, digesting his mother's words, and scrolled through the information. A determined look grew on Izuku's face. "You're right, Mom. It's not the end of the world if I don't get into UA. I'll just have to work harder and attend a different school." "Thanks, Mom, I needed that," spoke Izuku, an appreciative smile sent at his mother. "You're welcome. How about we finish eating? Then I'll help you look up more information," purposed Inko, as she gave him a quick hug and moved to take her seat again. "Ding dong. Now what could that be? You finish up dinner while I go get this," spoke Inko as she quickly made herself presentable and moved toward the door. Izuku continued eating his lunch quietly. "Aizawa, a letter. The letter from Yua is here," yelled his mother as she burst into the room in an adorable manner. Izuku couches on some of his food at her sudden entrance. "Thanks, Mom," spoke Izuku as his mother passed him the letter. "I'll just give you some privacy," spoke Inko as she moved to leave. "No, Mom, let's open it together," spoke Izuku before Inko could leave. With a nod, the Midoriya family sat on the couch. Izuku hesitated for a moment, then quickly ripped open the letter and a metal disc dropped onto the coffee table. The Midoriyas looked curiously at the disc until it lit up and projected an image onto a wall. "I am here, as a projection," yelled out the recording of All Might, startling the small family. "What All Might? But isn't this from UA?" questioned Izuku, looking at his equally confused mother. "Now I know that you maybe wonder why I'm here. Well, you're looking at the newest member of the UA facility," continued All Might as the camera zoomed out, revealing the symbol of peace wearing a yellow suit. "That explains why All Might was here in Musutafu. He was here to teach at UA," commented Inko. Izuku quickly put together why All Might was really in Musutafu. "He came here looking for a successor. I have to continue to rise to his expectations," thought Izuku. "So, let's move this along. Young Midoriya, even though you passed the written exam with flying colors, you got 0 combat points in the practical exam. I quote, "I'm sorry," spoke All Might, a sad tone in the massive man's voice. The words felt like a physical blow to Izuku. Inko places a hand on his back, trying to comfort her son. Fortunately, there were other factors. "But before that, look at this short clip for your viewing pleasure," continued All Might as the screen changed. It now shows the 3 girls that Izuku had met during the exam, showing them approach present mic. "Excuse me, Mr. Presentmic, could we have a quick word with you?" asked the orange-haired girl. Izuku was confused as to what was happening, while Inko was thinking in a completely different direction. "Maybe my baby can finally have a girlfriend. Maybe I'll get grandbabies in the future, thought Inko excitedly. They showed up after the exam to talk about you, young man, spoke All Might, explaining the situation. Of course, I can always spare a moment for my little listeners, replied Present Mike. Do you know that kid with the fluffy green hair, about this height? Asked the orange-haired girl, using her hand to show how tall she meant. He was the one with the cute freckles and the pretty eyes, added the horse girl in English, President Mike clearly understanding her. Inko was wondering what the girl said, given that whatever it was caused Izuku to blush heavily. We were wondering if we could give him some of our points, stuttered the brown-haired girl. Yeah, he saved me. He should at least get the points for the 2-pointer he saved me from, spoke the horse girl, her Japanese rough. She looked up at President Mike with determination. HEW would have had a better score if he hadn't stopped to save me. Give him some of my points, pleaded the brown-haired girl. While I and everyone else was running away, he charged toward the danger to face it head-on to save someone. It's not right if he doesn't get in. Someone like him deserves to be in UA. I can't just do nothing. Give him some of my points, spoke the orange-haired girl passionately. The 3 girls bowed toward Present Mike. You have a quirk now, yes, but it is your actions that inspire others to act, and that's why I am here. You see, the practical exam had a hidden element, spoke All Might as he held up a little X sign. Thanks for showing up at the station with your requests, but there's no reason to give him your points. The kid's gonna chart well on his own, replied Present Mike. The clip stops as it shifted to the clips of Izuku's actions during the exam. Inko pulled her son into a death grip when she saw the clips of Izuku's heroically dangerous actions. How could a hero course reject someone who is committed to saving others, no matter the risk? After all, that is what makes a hero. That's why the exam has rescue points. A panel of judges review the recordings of the exam and they award points for heroic acts beyond just fighting villains. Izuku Midoriya, for your actions you received a total of 110 points. Not only did you pass the exam, you placed first and set a new record for rescue points. Congratulations. You'll be contacted in a few days. Also, you will be testing a dorm system with first-year students. It is currently opt-in. With that said, I welcome you, young Midoriya, to your hero academy. Finished All Might as the projector powered down. I did it, Mom. I got into UA, spoke Izuku, tears of joy streaming down his cheeks. I'm so proud of you, cried out Inko, tears of joy also streaming down her face. The small family hugged as their combined tears started to flood the apartment. Izuku stood in front of a massive door that read 1B. He was hesitant to enter for multiple reasons. He was worried he'd open the door and Bakugo would be in there waiting to beat him, or that blue-haired kid would be there to humiliate him again. He was worried that nothing would change, that he'd be treated the exact same as he has been. It's you, spoke a very happy and familiar voice. Izuku turned to see the horse girl from the exam standing there with a big smile. Hello, it's good to see you again, spoke Izuku, stuttering as the girl approached him. Are you in Class 1B? Asked the girl in rough Japanese. She stood close to him, clearly eager for a response. Izuku blushed at the closeness of such a cute girl and couldn't find his voice, so he just nodded. Her face broke into a wide grin as she pulled Izuku into a hug. Yeah, that means we're classmates, spoke the girl in English as she jumped up and down in joy, easily carrying Izuku with her. Man, she's stronger than she looks. I'm happy to at least have someone I know in class, thought Izuku, his face bright red at the girl's actions. Oh, I haven't introduced myself yet, spoke the girl as she put Izuku down and took a step back. Hello, I'm Pony Tsunotori. Please call me Pony, continued the now-named Pony with a big smile and her horsetail moving back and forth. I am Izuku Midoriya. It's nice to meet you, Pony, responded Izuku with a bow, blushing at calling her by her first name. Let's go be heroes, Izuku, spoke Pony as she grabbed Izuku's hand and opened the door to their classroom. Their entrance caught the attention of the whole room. There were only 12 other students in the room and all of them were currently looking at them. That's when the orange-haired girl from the exam stood and approached them, followed by the brown-haired girl and her dark-skinned companion. Hi, it's good to see you made it in. I was worried about you for a moment. I'm Itsuka Kendo, by the way, and this is Kinoko Komori and her friend Shuhei Kirawaro, spoke Kendo, bringing Kinoko in front of her. He doesn't look like much. The kid looks like a scared rabbit, thought Shuhei, trying his best not to voice his thoughts as he sized up Izuku. Thank you for saving me from the 0-pointer, stuttered out Kinoko. Her words caused some in the class to suspect Izuku was the one to take down the 0-pointer. Hi, I'm Izuku Midoriya. Thank you for offering up your points. I really appreciate the gesture, responded Izuku as he bowed. The 3 girls blushed, clearly embarrassed. They told you about that, huh? Spoke Kendo, scratching her cheek. "How about we sit near each other?" proposed Pony, excited at the prospect of sitting with new friends. "Sure, we already took some seats near each other," responded Kendo with a kind smile. The group of four grabbed their seats, with Pony on his right, Kendo seated in front of him. Kinoko was on Kendo's right and Shihai was on Kinoko's right. The three girls started to talk amongst each other, clearly having interacted after they meet at the exam. Izuku only occasionally was asked to add something to the conversion, while Shihai basically did not talk the whole time. He just kept sending Izuku glares every now and then. As time went on and more students entered the classroom, a young girl with shoulder-length, black bob-shaped hair, cerulean eyes, and wearing a neutral expression on her face, joined them, sitting down in the seat to Kendo's left. Kendo had introduced the quiet girl as Yui Kodai, a friend from middle school. "It is nice to meet you, please take care of me," spoke Yui, her face and tone remaining neutral. Over the next 10 minutes, most of the seats had been filled. Only 5 seats were left, 2 of which being the seats to Izuku's left and the one behind him. A girl with long pointed teeth and curly dark moss green hair that reached below her shoulders plopped down in the seat to his left. "Hello, name's Setsuna Takage, nice to meet ya," spoke Setsuna, the girl giving them a large sharp-toothed grin. "Hi, I'm Kendo, and these are Kodai, Komori, Kiwaro, Pony, and Midoriya," replied Kendo, introducing the others. Izuku suddenly felt someone touching his hair, but when he looked there wasn't anyone behind him. When he looked back, Setsuna was leaning closer to him. "You've got curly green hair just like me. But how do you get it to be so soft and fluffy?" asked Setsuna with a large teasing grin. "TT, thank you for the C compliment, TT Takage-chan. But I don't do anything special to it," responded Izuku. He descended into incoherent mumbling. "I can already tell we're gonna get along great. But none of that Takage stuff, call me Setsuna." "Okay," spoke Setsuna, leaning even closer to Izuku. She bopped his nose with her disembodied hand before reattaching it. The boy practically had steam coming off him as his entire face went bright red. Setsuna started laughing at the boy's reaction. "Setsuna, quiet teasing him," spoke Kendo, defending the green-haired boy. Setsuna leaned back in her seat. "Sorry, he's just got such cute reactions, I couldn't help myself," commented Setsuna. Her words caused Izuku to somehow blush harder as he hid his face with his arms. Setsuna simply gestured to Izuku's current state as if it proved her point. Before Kendo could respond, the door to the classroom flew open. "What up, fam? You are ready to be legit heroes," yelled out a girl as she walked into class. The girl had straight, fawn-colored hair that reached just below her shoulders and large, dark brown eyes. She stood only a little shorter than Izuku and had noticeably full, plump, and glossy lips as well as a quite curvaceous figure. And she was dressed in the UA female uniform, but the top few buttons of her shirt were unbuttoned, revealing some of her cleavage. There were some comments on her entrance, but soon the class descended back into their original conversations. She walked toward the last available seat, which was the one right behind Izuku. "Hey, your tie's all twisted," spoke the girl, stopping by Izuku's desk. "Oh, why yeah, I have never been able to tie one right. I always mess it up," stutter out Izuku, stretching the back of his head. "Want me to fix it?" "It'll only take a minute," offered the girl, kindly and in a nonchalant manner. Izuku didn't know how to respond to the offer. The girl, not hearing a no, shrugged and leaned over and began to fix his tie. At her actions, Izuku looks away with a blush as he didn't want to accidentally see down her shirt. It was over in just a few moments, but to Izuku it was an anxiety-filled eternity. He could clearly hear Setsuna laughing quietly at his predicament. "They're all set. You gotta look your best on the first day. Name's Kami, by the way," spoke the girl as she stood straight again, throwing out a peace sign. Thank you 5 to 5 very much, Kami," spoke Izuku with red-tinted cheeks. "No probs, fam. We have to get along. We are gonna be together for the next 3 years," spoke Kami, waving it off. "But OMG, your freckles are shaped like little diamonds. That's so hella cute," commented Kami quietly in English as she took the seat behind Izuku. "I know, right? But don't let that fool you. Izuku is really strong," responded Pony, also in English, clearly having heard Kami. Izuku hid his face in his arms again, tuning out the conversations around him, and tried to regain his composure. Izuku wasn't used to this kind of treatment. The only time someone interacted with him in his past usually involved his money being taken, or insults, or beatings, or some form of humiliation, and often a combination of the four. Such was the reality of his life up to this point. So, it was strange for him to experience anyone his age being kind to him, let alone a bunch of very cute girls. It was simply unreal for him. A large part of Izuku was terrified that this happiness would be fleeting, that Bakugo would at any moment take this from him like he always did. Bakugo would convince everyone in the class to turn against him, to beat and berate him. "No matter what you do or how hard you fucking try, You'll never be anything but a worthless Deku. Remember that, thought Izuku, recalling Bakugo's parting words from their middle school graduation. Before Izuku's thoughts could go further down this dark path, the classroom door opened once more. The class went near completely silent. Izuku pulled out his hero notebook. That's the blood hero, Vlad King. He's been teaching at UA since shortly after UA was founded. He took down the villainous Banshee single-handedly, and helped dismantle the human trafficking ring, the Ghoul Court. He's so cool, thought Izuku, going full hero nerd. When Izuku looked up, Vlad and the rest of the class were all staring at him. Like many times before, Izuku blushed hard at being the center of attention. Vlad let out a deep, kind belly laugh. Reminds me of my first day of hero school, spoke Vlad before he coughed and straightened up. As Midoriya said, my name is Vlad King. I'll be your homeroom teacher. You will address me as Sensei or Vlad Sensei, all right? Asked Vlad sternly. Yes, Vlad Sensei, replied all the students. Vlad pulls out a clipboard and a pair of reading glasses. Great. Now we've got a full day ahead of us. We'll start with introductions, then we have the introduction ceremony, after which you'll all be meeting your other teachers. Then will be the interviews with a hound dog, followed by lunch. Lastly, I'll have you all take an assessment so I can get a feel for your capabilities. Then you're all free to go home. For those of you that are moving into the dorms, your stuff should be in the common room. I'll be giving you the tour after school, spoke Vlad, glancing at his clipboard. Well, let's get started when I call. Give your name, quirk, and a little fact about yourself if you want, spoke Vlad. Izuku pulled out a brand new hero notebook and began adding entries for each of his classmates, along with his own questions and speculation on possible uses improvements. Hero analysis for the future. No 14, UA Class 1B. Pony Tsunotori quirk, Horn Cannon. I got a good look at Pony's quirk from the entrance exam. It's a very powerful ranged attack that's difficult to dodge due to Pony's ability to control them remotely. But I still have so many questions. How many horns can she control at once? Could she control the horns independently, sending them at 2 different targets? How durable are her horns? She used them to fly briefly. How much weight can they carry? She could potentially pick up and remove multiple civilians from danger. She also appears to have a mutation that gives her horse-like features. I know she has enhanced strength. She probably has enhanced speed, but does she have better senses as well? More information on her quirk is needed. Pony is from Texas, which explains her trouble with Japanese. Maybe I should offer to help her. Kami Utsushimi quirk, Glamour. So, she can make short-lived visual and auditory illusions. That's so versatile. She could trick villains into thinking they were outnumbered, or make the terrain look different, making them crash into things and trip. She could make herself invisible or make illusionary duplicates of herself to confuse her opponents. But what are her limits? How long do the illusions last? How big of an area can she cover? How detailed can she make the illusions? Since her quirk doesn't give her any physical enhancements, she could benefit from support equipment, a weapon perhaps. Some utility items would be very helpful as well. Could she potentially store the gas she breathes out, making gas grenades or maybe some kind of gas mine? If she could, would the illusions be decided beforehand, or could she change it at will? Do the illusions affect machines too? If not, then how did she pass the exam? I should ask her. Kami is from California and seems to be fluent in both English and Japanese. Kosei Tsubiraba quirk, Solid Air. The ability to create platforms and walls of air when he breathes out. A good defensive quirk, but how strong are they? How long can they last? Can they be moved, perhaps thrown as an offensive attack? Can he make different shapes? More data is needed. Senkaibara quirk, Gyrate. His quirk allows him to make any part of his body rotate like a drill. Could it be used for digging up debris to save civilians, or maybe a useful breaching tool? He could enhance his strikes with it. Could he use his quirk to let him swim at high speed, like a boat propeller? Juzo Honuki quirk, Softening. He can soften any non-living thing he touches. He could safely save civilians buried under rubble, hinder villains' attempts to escape, or even soften someone's landing from a fall. But how much material can he soften at once? How much range does he have with it? He got in through recommendation, so he must be very skilled. Haryu Rin quirk, Scales. The ability to sprout scales from his skin and be able to shoot them out as projectiles. A relatively simple quirk that allows for good offensive and defense. It's more than enough to be a good hero. Rin is the last foreign student. He is from China and is versed in martial arts. I wonder if... Midoriya, you're next, spoke Vlad, breaking Izuku's train of thought. All eyes turned to Izuku, immediately making him nervous. Hi, I'm Izuku M. Midoriya. My quirk is called TT Tactile Telekinesis. It lets me enhance my own body. Please take care of me, stuttered out Izuku as he quickly took his seat again. Thankfully, Vlad continued to move the introductions along. Izuku returned to his notebook. Ibara Shizaki quirk, Vines. Her quirk allows her to manipulate her vine like hair. This is such a good versatile quick. She can attack, defend, restrain opponents, and she can use them to rescue trapped civilians. But how could it be improved? Could she improve her striking power by tying the ends of her vines into knots, essentially making fails? What about making it into one large braid? Depending on her control, she could use her vines to swing around like Kamui woods, thus increasing her mobility. She seems to have a kind and gentle demeanor that along with her quirk, and she'll be a very popular heroine in the future. Itsuka Kendo quirk, Big Fist. Kendo can enlarge her fists to a gigantic size. The increase in size also seems to enhance her strength. This complements Kendo's martial arts training, making her a formidable opponent in hand-to-hand combat. But what else could she do with her quick? Could she launch herself by striking the ground? Or maybe she could throw a civilian out of harm's way. Maybe she could generate wind. I should ask her if she could give me some pointers for how I should fight. Now that I think of it, do I even know how to throw a punch properly? All Might's workout plan focused exclusively on getting me in shape and my endurance. Maybe Kendo could help me. She did mention her family owns a dojo. Setsuna Takage quirk, Lizard Tail Splitter. She can split up her body into many pieces, and all those pieces are able to levitate and move freely through the air. It's an extremely versatile quirk. It could allow her to spy and gather information easily, and at little risk since she can apparently regenerate any piece that is destroyed. She could use her quirk to support other heroes in a battle, harassing and distracting the villains. Although her ability to attack is limited, as her quirk doesn't seem to increase her strength or striking power. But she could also be very good at infiltration in other situations that require stealth. But how many pieces can she control at once? How far from her can they go? How small can the pieces be? What are the limits of her regeneration? Setsuna is the second recommended student in our class. Tetsu quirk, Steel. His quirk allows him to turn his skin into steel. A good defensive quirk that should let him tank a lot of hits. He can shield civilians and other heroes with his quirk. Depending on his strength, he could breach walls and doors with ease. If he learns the right fighting style, he could become a powerful hero. Shihai Kiwaro quirk, Black. His quirk allows him to merge with black. That's all he said. More information will be needed before I can properly analyze his quirk. I get the feeling that Shihai doesn't like me much. Yosu Awace quirk, Weld. Yosu's quirk gives him the ability to fuse objects together at an atomic level. This quirk could be used to weld rubble together, making it safer to extract civilians. He could also disable villains by welding them to the floor or walls, maybe even weld them to their own bodies, effectively restraining them. He'll become a very dangerous melee combatant in the future. Kinoko Komori quirk, Mushroom. She can create spores that can turn into different kinds of fungus upon contact with any surface. This quirk could be extremely debilitating. She could blind or deafen an opponent by growing mushrooms over their ears and eyes. She could knock someone out easily by having them breathe in her spores and cause them to asphyxiate. She can also make enough mushrooms to cushion falls, as she did in the entrance exam. But the effectiveness of this could be limited. Could she possibly stabilize muddy terrain by using her mushrooms to anchor the dirt? She's the first person I meet at UA. She seems to be just as shy as I am. I'm glad she's my classmate, and I can't wait to get to know her and the others. Yui Kodai quirk, Size. She is able to change the size of any non-living object she touches. This is incredibly useful. Is there a limit to how big or small she can make an object? How long does the change stay? Could she shrink one object while growing another at the same time? Does she also change the density and weight of the object? Depending on how it works, she could carry a large amount of medicine, food, and other supplies into areas that would prove difficult or impossible for a vehicle. She could shrink debris and rubble, making rescue work easier, and make clearing blocked roads less time-consuming during a disaster. She could carry an arsenal of gadgets without having to worry about weight as much. It could also be a great offensive tool, as even a pebble could become a boulder. Kajiro Bondo quirk, Semidine. His quirk lets him spray large amounts of a fast-drying glue-like liquid from the holes in his face. A good quirk for area denial and restraining villains. Bondo seems to have a very quiet nature. Tagaru Kamakiri quirk, Razor Sharp. He is able to produce large blades from any part of his body. The offensive potential of this quirk is obvious, though I would like to know if he can detach his blades and use them as ranged weapons. Depending on the durability and sharpness, he could potentially scale the sides of builds or cliff faces. He could also be good at breaching doors and walls. He is another classmate that has the potential of being a great melee fighter. Manga Fukadashi quirk, Comic. He can materialize onomatopoeia, which manifests the effects of the word. It's a quirk that is mainly limited by his creativity. Offensive, defense, support, rescue. As long as he can talk, he could be effective in the situation. Ryuko Yanagi quirk, poltergeists. She has a telekinetic quirk like Mom, but Yanagi's quirk allows her to control not just objects but people as well. But she has a weight limit and a maximum range. Could her weight limit be improved? Could her range? How precise is her control? Does she have any limitations in regards to the number of objects that she can control at once? Could she catch projectiles like bullets in midair? Even if the limitations for her quirk are fixed, it is still a versatile quirk that is useful for whatever type of hero she wants to be. Jiroda Shishida quirk, Beast. Jiroda's quirk allows him to transform into a large, monstrous beast man, which increases his strength, speed, durability, and his senses. However, he becomes more animalistic mentally as well. He can also choose to partially transform certain parts of his body, thus gain some of the benefits without the feral mental state. He could track down villains with his augmented senses, making him an asset during a pursuit or manhunt. Depending on his level of control, he could become quite a skilled combat hero. After introductions were finished, Vlad led the class to the auditorium, where they took their seats near the front. Class 1 should have been sitting next to them, but they were nowhere to be seen. Nezu seemed to ignore the fact that an entire class was missing. Nezu simply started his speech. The speech itself was long, boring, and rambling. Some of the students seated behind Izuku fell asleep. However, Nezu's speech was interrupted twice, both times by loud and very familiar explosions roughly an hour apart. Izuku flinched horribly at the sound, which some of his classmates did notice. Nezu for his part seemed very annoyed at the interruptions, but he finished his speech and the Gen Ed students were allowed to go back home, while the support students left with Power Loader to the support department studios. Class 1B was led to another room where one by one each student got to talk to their teachers, after which they were sent to speak with Hound Dog. Izuku had gone full fanboy, excitedly asking for autographs from the pro heroes. Everything went smoothly except for when Izuku met Midnight, the R-rated heroine. The seductive heroine quickly discovered Izuku was easily flustered and began to tease him mercilessly. However, unlike Setsuna, Midnight was on another level of teasing. The R-rated heroine quickly caused Izuku to faint. She then proceeded to place Izuku's head on her lap and left it there as she continued to talk with the other students as if nothing was amiss. This caused most of the male students to get jealous and caused the male teachers to sigh dramatically. "Feels like watching a fox mess with a rabbit," added Presentmic, his tone full of amusement. "I almost feel sorry for the kid. It seems Midnight's taken a liking to him." "Think he'll be okay, Vlad?" asked Snipe, looking at the blood hero. "He'll be fine," said Vlad, looking at Midnight nonchalantly, speaking with Setsuna as Midnight played with Izuku's hair. The two girls seemed to be hitting it off. "I hope," finished Vlad. "Why do I feel like Midoriya is going to be involved in a lot of headaches in the future?" thought Vlad for a moment, once all the other students had finished meeting the teachers and were heading to Hound Dog. "Alright, Nimiri, you've had your fun. The boy still needs to talk to Ryo before lunch, so wake him up," spoke Vlad, approaching them as the other teachers filed out of the room. "Awa, come on Sekijiro, he's just so cute. Can't I keep him a little longer?" replied Midnight in an overdramatic cute tone, trying to sway him. Vlad gave her an unamused look. "Fine, not like I won't be able to mess with him later," spoke Midnight with an almost comical pout. Midnight grabbed a small container of smelling salts from her belt and used it on Izuku. Izuku's eyes snapped open. He was looking right at Midnight's face and he quickly realized where he was. "Did you have a good nap?" asked Midnight with a sultry grin. Izuku's face turned bright red at her words. Before Midnight could once again make Izuku faint, Vlad interjected. "Midoriya, you still need to talk with the guidance counselor. Come on," barked out Vlad as he turned to leave the room. Izuku shot to his feet. "Yes, Vlad-sensei," responded Izuku as he fell into step behind his teacher. Izuku glances back at Midnight before he left the room. The R-rated heroine sent him a sexy wink and blew a kiss at him. Izuku let out a quiet squeak and he hurried out of the room to catch up with Vlad-sensei. Hound Dog's office. Izuku sat in a surprisingly comfy chair in front of Hound Dog's desk. The room looked more like a psychologist's office from TV than a school guidance counselor. The hero's muzzle was off, revealing his canine features. The guidance counselor was pulling up Izuku's file on his computer. Izuku had taken some of the gummy candies the Hound Dog had offered him from the bowl on the desk. "Alright, let's start. First, I'd like to once again welcome you to the UA Hero course. I'll be your guidance counselor for your time here at UA. spoke Hounddog, a polite grin on his face. I feel honored. Hounddog-sensei, could I get an autograph? Spoke Izuku, stuttering out his words. The hunting dog hero quickly wrote his signature in the autograph book. So, as you may know, there are broadly 3 categories of heroes: combat, support, and rescue. Combat heroes focus on taking down villains and providing security for events and VIPs. Rescues heroes focus on dealing with a multitude of different scenarios: natural disasters, fires, floods, cats in trees, and much more. Support heroes are the broadest category: healing, tracking of villains, information gathering, performing investigations, counseling, interrogation, and transport of villains to prison are just some examples. But these categories are loose classifications. Some heroes fit into more than one category. Like me, for example, I combat villains, but I also take part in manhunts and search and rescue operations, while other heroes like 13 focus purely on rescue work. Do you have an idea of what you'd like to do as a hero? It's fine if you don't have a solid idea, asked Hounddog. Izuku only took a few moments to respond. All Might was the first hero that really inspired me. I want to be like him, doing all kinds of hero work, replied Izuku, determination in his eyes, despite the stutter in his voice. A very common statement. A lot of students that come to UA also want to emulate All Might. Tell me, Izuku, do you plan on getting an international hero license like All Might? Asked Hounddog professionally. Izuku took a lot longer to think of his answer. He even began to mutter to himself. Hounddog did not interrupt the teen's train of thought. The hero simply sat quietly, patiently waiting for Izuku's response. I haven't really thought about that before today. I guess I'd like to establish myself in Japan first. Once I have more experience, I might go for an international license. But I'm still not sure, spoke Izuku after he stopped muttering. It's fine if you're not sure. Less than 200 heroes in all of Japan have their international licenses, spoke Hounddog as he typed quickly into the computer, eyes narrowing at the screen. Now, I have some questions about your middle school, if that's fine with you, continued Hounddog, his tone serious. That's fine with me, responded Izuku nervously as he looked away. Your quirk manifested during the exam, so you were considered quirkless till that moment, correct? Asked Hounddog, looking right into Izuku's eyes. Why yes sir, responded Izuku, avoiding eye contact, as he starting to worry about where this was going. According to your file, you had frequent visits to the nurse's office for burns, bruises, and lacerations. However, the causes of these injuries are not in any of the reports. Could you tell me about that? Asked Hounddog, who already had his suspicions on the answer. I have just always been clumsy, and I often look for hero fights around town, spoke Izuku, lying as best he could, in other words horribly. Hounddog didn't believe a word. But I don't have any evidence or probable cause to look more into this matter right now, thought Hounddog, frustrated. The hero let out a long sigh. It's only the first day. I'll get him to open up later, thought Hounddog, who moved on to a few more questions. Soon they had finished and Izuku stood to leave. All right, you're done. Enjoy your lunch, spoke Hounddog. Izuku gave a quick bow and was at the door when Hounddog spoke again, causing the teen to turn toward the hero. Izuku, this is not your old school. If you need anything or need to talk to someone, don't hesitate to come to talk to me or the other teachers. You're a student here, please rely on us. We're here to help you kids, finished Hounddog with passion and conviction. Thank you, Hounddog-sensei. I'll be sure to keep that in mind, responded Izuku with another bow, and he slipped out of the room. Hounddog let out another sign. Kid's easier to read than a Dr. Seuss book. Not hard to assume why he acts like that, given how people treat the quirkless. Hopefully, that's all in his past now, and he can grow into a good hero unimpeded. But there might be more kids suffering in that school, thought Hounddog, anger bubbling in his chest. He pulled up another file. I'll have to try and convince Aizawa to let me talk to him. He may get me the information I need, thought Hounddog, looking at Bakugo's file, not knowing he wouldn't have to wait long for his probable cause. UA cafeteria. Izuku sat at a large cafeteria table that was situated near a bank of large windows that showed off the school's heavily forested property. Izuku had quickly gotten some food from the cook hero, Lunch Rush, who serves as UA's chief. After acquiring his lunch, helping Pony order her food and a quick autobiography from the hero, he was semi-dragged to a table by Pony and Setsuna. The table had the same group of his classmates that sat around him in class. Izuku was sat between Kendo and Pony, while Kami, Setsuna, Kurwaro, and Kinoko sat on the other side of the table. Jiroda and Yanagi were also seated at the table but were further down from Izuku. The teens eagerly dug into the delicious meal. Yum, this is so good, spoke Pony as she took another bite of her food with a content smile. To be expected from Lunch Rush. He is the #2 food-based hero in the world, commented Izuku with a big smile. Pony simply nodded as her mouth was full. Hey Izuku, exactly how do you know English? Asked Kami, her head tilted the side. The girl's question drew the attention of some of the others at the table. I was also curvaceous about that. How do you know English? Asked Pony as she looked at Izuku. Pony, I think you meant curious, spoke Kendo, correcting the horse girl. Oh, sorry about that. Thank you, Kendo, spoke Pony, slightly embarrassed as she tapped her fingers against each other. They do bring up a good question. So, care to share? Spoke Setsuna, shifting the table's attention back to Izuku. I wanted to follow heroes from all over. I started to watch the hero news from different countries. So, I'll learn the L languages to understand them better, explained Izuku nervously. Exactly how many languages can you speak? Asked Kendo. Izuku had to actively prevent himself from squirming under the gazes of his classmates. S6, replied Izuku quietly, his words imposing those at the table. Gee, that's amazing, spoke Kanoko as she nervously fiddled with her hands. So, he's multilingual, it's not that impressive, thought Kiwaro, keeping himself from rolling his eyes. That's like Tot's sweet. What are the other languages? Asked Kami as she pulled out her phone. Well, I can speak German, Russian, French, and Italian, responded Izuku. His classmate praised his skill. Kendo led the conversion onto the interests and skills of the others as they continued to eat. Utsushimi-chan, can I ask you something? Asked Izuku. The girl faced him, a slightly miffed look on her face. Sure, Izuku-kun, but call me Kami. Like I told you to, K, responded Kami. Izuku nodded and then he pulled out his notebook, from out of seemingly nowhere. I wanted to know, does your quirk work on robots? Asked Izuku, excited curiosity in his tone. My quirk only works on people, it works through cameras. But the exam robots worked on their own, explained Kami, using her quirk to make a tiny chibi of herself and Izuku. We are here, spoke the two illusions as they struck a few superheroes poses together before they vanished. Izuku's eyes widened in wonder as he saw the little chibis. He started to rapidly write in his notebook and muttering. Izuku looked back up at Kami. So how did you deal with the exam? If your quirk didn't work on the robots? Asked Izuku. Kami along with Kendo and Setsuna were amused with Izuku's antics. Kami once again used her quirk to bring forth the tiny chibi Kami and chibi versions of the villain bots. Easy, I just filled in the forms for special gear and brought a metal bat. The rescue points also helped, spoke Kami. The tiny chibi Kami proceeded to beat the villain bots. The tiny doppelganger stood tall on the beaten foes and blew a kiss with a heart right after the illusion vanished. That's really clever. I didn't even consider bringing a weapon, spoke Izuku as he wrote some more. What are you writing? Is Izuku-kun? Asked Kanoko nervously. Just notes on Kami's quirk along with some of my ideas, replied Izuku, stuttering out as he stopped writing. Really, can I take a peek? Sked Kami. Izuku hesitated a moment but passed the girl the notebook. Kami started to look over the notes, but before Kami could respond, Izuku's blood ran cold as he heard. "DKU, you bastard," yelled a voice over the sound of multiple explosions. Izuku turned his head just enough to see the explosion that blasted him. Izuku crashed into the table, shattering it, causing food to go flying everywhere. Black smoke covered part of the cafeteria. Izuku's ears were ringing from the point-blank explosion. He had burns, and he was definitely going to bruise. As the ringing in his ears faded, he felt a hand roughly grab his damaged blazer and haul him up. Izuku looked into the hate and anger-filled eyes of Bakugo. Kekken. I stutter out, Izuku devolving into the same mentality he always did, meek and as non-threatening as possible. Before Izuku could continue to speak, Bakugo struck him in the gut, knocking the air out of Izuku. The smell of burnt sugar became more pronounced as fist grabbing his clothes started to smoke. Listen here, you Quirkle sack of shit. You tell me how you cheated to get in here. And you better say it quick or I'll FCkin ... OHF. Yelled out Bakugo until he was hit by an enlarged hand knocking him away from Izuku. Izuku's back flared in pain as he hit the ground again. The smoke cleared and Izuku saw Kendo with Setsuna and Pony on either side of her. They were standing in between him and Bakugo, the three of them covered in soot and bits of food. Pony and Kendo's uniforms were also singed and burnt. Izuku, are you okay? Asked Kanoko as she and Kami suddenly appeared on either side of him, both in similar disheveled states. They worriedly looked over him and helped him sit up. I thought this school was supposed to be top tier. How'd the asshole get in? Asked Kami rhetorically, glaring at the blonde. Fuck you, man, hands. I won't kill you worthless extras if you hand over Deku. threatened Bakugo, hands popping with explosions as he insulted Kendo. What the hell? Why'd you do that? Spoke Setsuna, anger in her tone, as she detached pieces of herself in case of a fight. Because you fucking split, bitch. I'm going to be #1 hero and surpass All Might. Naturally I was to get the top spot in the exam. So, there's no way that quirkless waste of space could get my #1 slot without cheating. Responded Bakugo, equal parts arrogant, angry, and irrational. But Izuku has a quirk. He took out the started Pony, clearly wanting to defend her new friend. But Bakugo cut her off with an explosion. Shut it, cow tits. You, handjob and split bitch, get the fuck out of my way, yelled Bakugo as he charged at them. Die, yelled out Bakugo, throwing out an explosion with both hands at the three girls with no hesitation. The cafeteria went so quiet you could hear a pin drop. When the smoke cleared, all that stood there was some kind of blood-red shield. Confused, Bakugo suddenly found himself on the ground, his hands restrained against his body, his palms, the source of his explosions, pointed at his own face. The blonde bomber looked up to see Vlad King reabsorb his blood shield. Now, somebody explain what's going on here, spoke Vlad, his tone serious, piercing the quiet cafeteria. That crazy chihuahua attacked Izuku while we were having lunch, answered Setsuna, the other students in the cafe all agreeing with her. Bakugo glared angrily at the green-haired girl as she comforted a crying pony. What's your name in class? Demanded Vlad, looking at Bakugo. The blonde just clicked his tongue at the question. Instead he chose to just glare at the extras that dared to oppose him. Sensei, his name is Katsuki Bakugo. He is part of Class 1A, spoke Lita as he and Uraraka approached. Of course, he's one of Aizawa's, thought Vlad. Thank you, and you are, spoke Vlad, as he tried to remember what was in Bakugo's file. I am Tenya Lita and this is Ochako Uraraka. Sensei, responded Lita stiffly as he bowed to the teacher. I'm surprised you're still here. Normally Aizawa's class is dismissed by now, spoke Vlad, confused and scrutinizing the two students. Some of the class stayed behind to speak with the guidance counselor. We just finished in time to get a little lunch before heading home, informed Uraraka, explaining why some of Class 1 was still on campus. But Bakugo went to the gym on campus to train, spoke Lita, further explaining as his hands moved about. Stay out of this, glasses. And you too, round face, yelled Bakugo, angry glare at the two. Lita just looked disapprovingly at Bakugo, while Uraraka was wondering if he was calling her fat. Why would you attack another student? Asked Vlad, his tone very cold and serious. To teach that cheating bastard a lesson, answered Bakugo, looking at Izuku like he wanted to light him on fire. Midoriya, he earned his place in the hero course, respond Vlad, crossing his arms. There's no way the quirkless weakling passed the exam without cheating, yelled Bakugo, violently wiggling on the floor. Vlad and the students that had seen Izuku were confused. Then Vlad remembered what Nezu had said at the meeting. Midoriya is a late bloomer. He manifested his quirk during the exam, informed Vlad flatly. This caused most of the students to look at Izuku in surprise. However, someone had a very different reaction. Fucking Deku, you've been looking down on me this whole time, haven't you? Keeping your quirk a secret this whole time. I'll fucking kill you, yelled Bakugo, trying to free himself. Vlad looked at the kid in front of him, shocked at the level of mental gymnastics and stupidity he had just heard. I don't think you understand how much trouble you're in right now, spoke Vlad, getting back on subject and trying to impart the seriousness of the situation. Yeah, I get it. I used my quirk in public, spoke Bakugo, clearly not thinking it was a big deal, and not even mention his attack on fellow students. Vlad pinched the bridge of his nose. I remember this kid had good grades. Is he really this dense? Does he really not understand? We'll figure it out later, thought Vlad with a sigh. The blood hero hosted Bakugo to his feet, keeping a firm grasp on the student. The pro hero looked at his students, judging the level of harm done. All of you should head to Recovery Girl for treatment. If she okays it, you can go to the training field. I have to deal with Bakugo and arrange for replacement uniforms for you all right, spoke Vlad in a somewhat softer tone. Yes, sensei, responded the students. The group, covered in food and soot, then proceeded out of the cafeteria just as some cleaning robots enter the cafe along with Powerloader. Quit the mess on the first day, spoke Powerloader with a whistle as the robots picked up what was left of the table and started to clean up the food and soot off the floor. Higari, do you know where Aizawa is? Asked Vlad with a sigh of exasperation. Last I saw him, he was under his desk sleeping. I'll go get him for you, offered Powerloader, wanting to prevent any conflict between the two without any mediators. Thank you, Higari. Please tell him to meet me in principal at Nezu's office, spoke Vlad with a small smile, as he removed Bakugo's restaurants now that his targets had left. No problem, spoke Powerloader with a wave as Vlad led Bakugo out of the room. The teen still does not seem to understand his position. UA outdoor track field. The group of teens didn't have to spend a lot of time in Recovery Girl's office. The old heroine took detailed notes on their injuries, the most severe injuries being second-degree burns and a bruised rib that Izuku suffered. But they were dealt with quickly by Recovery Girl's quirk. The teens were cleared to return to their class, although slightly more tired and with some candy. The entirety of Class 1B stood outside by the athletic field all dressed in their UA gym uniforms. Vlad was already out on the field waiting for them, a tablet in his hand. Alright everyone, before we start, I want to speak about the incident in the cafeteria. Lunkrish saw the whole thing. The matter has been more or less dealt with at this point, but some of you may still need to talk to Principal Nezu later. Spoke Vlad in a neutral tone, but it was clear he was hiding his displease. Did the guy get expelled? Asked Setsuna, her distaste for Bakugo clear in her tone. Izuku squished down the urge to defend his childhood friend. No, he's been given detention for the next 2 weeks. His parents will be contracted, and if he makes any more trouble, he'd be put in the gen ed course at best and expelled at worst. On top of that, the incident has been noted in his permanent file. Spoke Vlad, explaining to the students. Those involved seem to accept this punishment, all except one. AI, is it that a little much? Squeaked out Izuku. His words caused everyone to look at him. Kendo and Setsuna, in particular, narrowed their eyes in suspicion at the green-haired boy. He used his quirk outside of training to blast himself from one side of the cafeteria to the other, attacked a student, injured several others, and destroyed school property. He was also about to attack more students when I walked in. On top of that, he seemed not to have any remorse for his action. If he was part of this class, I'd have expelled him on the spot. Spoke Vlad with a deadpan voice as he looked at Izuku, scrutinizing the teen. Why wasn't he? He acted more like some Madden fanatic than a student of a venerable hero school. Asked Ibara, her displease of Bakugo on full display. Several classmates nodding along with her words. It's not my call. It's up to his homeroom teacher and the principal. Responded Vlad with a sigh, before he cleared his throat. Let's move on and get started with this assessment. It is the same that you'd take in middle school, except I want you all to use your quirks. This is so I can get a feel for where all stand individually and as a group. So, I want all of you to give it your all, get it? Spoke Vlad, his words causing most in the class to get excited. Yes, Vlad-sensei, replied the whole class with conviction. The assessment started with a 50-meter sprint. Izuku had run with Kamakiri, who used his quirk to create makeshift cleats with his blades, while Izuku just ran normally. However, Pony came out the fastest, followed shortly after by Honuki, who used his quirk to swim through the ground. The high jump was a tough event. Yanagi used her quirk to fly herself over the bar, but she moved slowly and unstably. Tsubiraba created platforms of solid air to make a staircase for himself. Shishta's legs bulked up slightly and he cleared the bar with ease. Ibara used her vines to fling herself over the bar and somehow gracefully landed on the mat. Manga used his quirk to make the onomatopoeia, which acted as a springboard to improve his jump. However, Setsuna simply broke herself apart and floated her pieces over the bar with ease. The repeated sidesteps event was more one-sided, despite Kanoko using a bunch of springy mushrooms and Manga using spring-like onomatopoeia to bounce back and forth. Ibara still outdid everyone by using her hair to pull her back and forth. The grip strength test event went by quick and was thoroughly won by Kendo, whose grip strength outdid everyone else by a large margin. The flexibility tests were easily dominated by Setsuna, who showed how easy it is to touch one's toes when you can detach your midsection. The only one to even come close to competing with Setsuna was Kame, who showed a surprising level of flexibility that had her classmate questioning if humans are supposed to be able to bend like that. Oase, Tsubiraba, and Kaibara, in particular, did their best to not be caught, as they were staring very intently at Kame's body. As the tests went by one, Vlad diligently recorded his students' results. However, he frowned at Izuku's hesitance to use his quirk, which he had guessed would be the case, so he sent a quick message with his tablet in between events. The class was down to the last 2 events, the ball throw and the endurance run. One by one the class did the ball throw. Kamakiri grew a large blade in his hand and used it as a makeshift baseball bat. Kendo simply smacked the ball with her enlarged hand. Ibara used her vine as a makeshift sling to throw the ball. Jirota threw the ball after enhancing himself with beastly strength. Pony shot out a pair of horns after she had thrown the ball and then used them to hit the ball mid-flight. Setsuna just detached her arm and had it carry the ball to around the 62-meter mark and had her disembodied arm throw the ball. Ryuko just used her quirk to throw the ball as hard as she could, getting a respectable distance. It was Izuku's turn, and the boy nervously walked to the circle, but right before he could follow through with his throw, Midoriya, yelled out Vlad sensei, causing Izuku's ball to land only a few meters from him. Yes, sensei, replied Izuku, as he notices that Recovery Girl was approaching the class. Listen, I understand your apprehension about using your quirk given you only awakened it recently, but you won't improve by not using it. I asked Recovery Girl to be here for when the backlash hits, so I want you to use your quirk. Show your classmates what you can do. Spoke Vlad, his words motivating Izuku. Please at least try not to hurt yourself too badly, commented Recovery Girl sternly. Do your best, Izuku. Divided by you can do it, cheered Kami and Pony, trying to motivate Izuku as he returned to the circle after retrieving the ball. Come on, Izuku, think. There has to be a way to not hurt my body as much, thought Izuku as he was thought deeply for a solution. Come on already, spoke Kiwaro, startling Izuku out of his thoughts. You should cover your ears, spoke Izuku. Izuku took a breath and moved into the best pitcher's stance he could. Izuku clenched his butt cheeks and yelled from the bottom of his heart. Smash! Yelled out Izuku. 3 distinct booms followed in quick succession as wind blasted outward from him. His classmates that had not seen his quirk before stared in shock. Vlad, Kendo, Setsuna, and a few of the others were partially shocked as they knew what those distinctive cones of air meant. Did he just throw the ball at Mach 3? Thought Setsuna, slack-jawed, trying to process how the little bundle of nerves she had been teasing could hold so much power. Vlad sensei, I did it, spoke Izuku, holding back tears. One of his fingers a dark misshapen purple. A smile split across Vlad's face. Roughly 10 seconds later Vlad's tablet dinged. This kid, thought Vlad. His smile widened as he showed the class Izuku's results. All Recovery Girl moved to Izuku to treat his injury. 10 kilometers. That's insane, yelled out Tetsu, flabbergasted at the result. I'd never guessed that someone like him could have such a crazy strong quirk. Commented Rin, his tone flat and an eyebrow raised. But the backlash hurts him. Check out his finger. Man, that's got to hurt, added Honuki, wincing slightly at the dark purple, almost black look of the finger. That was awesome, Izuku, cheered Pony, fist raised in excitement. Jigo, good job, stuttered out Kinoko quietly. All right everyone, clam down, we still have the endurance run to do, spoke Vlad, calming down the excited students and had them all line up on the track course. The endurance run lasted the longest out of all the other events as most of the heroes in training were in decent shape. The first to fall was Yanagi, with Kinoko following not too far after. The spooky girl, Manga, and Yui were the next to run out of steam. Then fell Honuki, Ibara, Kami, and Subiraba. The next to throw in the towel were Bondo, Kaibara, Awase, and Kiwaro. Jiroda, Setsuna, and Kamakiri were the next to tire out and had to stop running. Kendo and Tetsu both collapsed, no longer able to push themselves any further. This left Izuku, who was covered in sweat, his training with all might paying off. Beside him was Pony, who was running on all fours and easily keeping pace with Izuku. They glanced at each other, both having a competitive glint in their eyes. The two continued to run for another 45 minutes before Izuku had to stop. Pony only took another dozen steps before she too had to stop. With the final event completed, the class gathered around Vlad sensei. Well done everyone, you all surpassed my expectations. You're all free to get changed back into your uniforms. Be sure to grab a copy of the syllabus in the classroom before you head home. Those that will be dorming, please wait for me in the classroom. All right, you're all dismissed, spoke Vlad with a smile. The class all bowed and scampered toward the changing rooms. You can come out now, All Might, stated Vlad. All Might appeared out from his hiding spot behind a nearby tree. Any reason why you were spying on my class? Asked Vlad good-naturally to his newest colleague. Well, I wanted to see how young Midoriya would fare in your assessment, replied All Might with a cough, embarrassed at being caught spying. Vlad raised an eyebrow, wondering why All Might had such an interest in Izuku, but he decided to just ask later. He did well, placed in the top 10 when it comes to the assessment, and that's without using his quirk for the most part and being slightly tired from Recovery Girl's earlier treatment. The kid has a lot of potential. Once he has control of that quirk of his, he'll give most pros a run for their money, explained Vlad as he showed All Might the results of the assessment. That is, if he can stop the backlash from hurting him. The damage done is tremendous, commented Recovery Girl, clearly not too pleased with the backlash of Izuku's quirk. I'll help him figure it out. I plan on looking through the footage of him tonight and tomorrow after his first heroics class to see if I can come up with anything for him. Sorry, but I still have to show some students to the dorms. Goodbye and see you tomorrow, spoke Vlad before he politely excused himself and left. Izuku certainly got lucky being placed in Vlad's class. Aizawa wouldn't have been fair with his assessment. thought All Might as he watches Vlad leave. Glad that Izuku would not be unfairly hindered in his development. Boys' locker room. Izuku stood in the boys' changing room, switching into a spare gym uniform given his school uniform was damaged. "Excuse me, Sir Midoriya," spoke a voice from the locker to Izuku's left. Izuku looked over to see Jiroda. "Why, yes, Shishida," replied Izuku, stuttering nervously. "I wish to inquire about the brute that assaulted you sans provocation." "The ruffian seemed to be familiar with you," asked Jiroda, adjusting his glasses. Unbeknownst to the boys, one of the girls was listening, and thanks to her quirk, Bakugo and I have know each other since we were little. Our moms have been friends since high school, explained Izuku. The boys that were listening into the conversation seemed confused. "So, he's like your childhood friend," spoke Tsuburaba, making a guess. Izuku just nodded in response. "He seems more like a childhood bully to me," spoke Tetsu, speaking from his experience of defending weaker kids from bullies ever since he got his quirk. Izuku quickly began to defend Bakugo. By the end of it, most of his male classmates seemed to be convinced and dropped the subject. However, Setsuna, who had been listening and was not, after changing and grabbing a copy of the syllabus, Izuku said goodbye to most of his classmates as they left to return home. Specifically, he said goodbye to Kendo, Yui, Kanoko, and Jiroda as the left. This left him along with Setsuna, Kami, Pony, Kaibara, Yanagi, Tsuburaba, and Rin. This was the group of students that would be testing out the dorm system. It makes sense that Rin, Kami, and Pony are here. They're all from out of the country. It's probably cheaper for them to stay in the dorms. I'm just here to learn to be more independent, reasoned Izuku as he went over his notes from the day. A tap on his shoulder made him turn toward Kami. "Izuku, after class finishes, could you do me a solid by coming with me to the support department?" asked Kami as she twirled some of her hair with her finger. "Sure, but why do you need me?" questioned Izuku. Kami tapped on his hero analysis book. "Cause I wanna see if I can add some of your great ideas for equipment to my costume before they get finished," explained Kami causally. "Are you sure? I don't know why you want to. My ideas aren't that good," spoke Izuku as he looked down, recalling the numerous times he was insulted for the contents of his notebooks. "Of course, some of your ideas are things I've never thought of. Your suggestions for equipment are gonna be hella useful," spoke Kami, praising Izuku. "I'd be glad to help," agreed Izuku, a small smile on his face and a warm pride spreading in his core. "Thanks a bunch. I appreciate it," spoke Kami. Izuku spoke to the friends he'd made until Vlad Sensei showed up and led the students to the Class 1B dorms. The dormitories are large buildings with 5 floors separated into 2 wings. The building has Class 1B posted above a sign that reads Alliance. The building is circled by low hedge bushes that leave a path open to the entrance. The entrance is comprised of 2 sets of double doors. Alongside the pathway are 2 park benches and 2 towers with lights on them. The first level of the building is white while the upper levels are colored brown on the outside. "Welcome to Class 1B's dorms, which I call Bastion." The first floor is a common area. As you can see, it has a kitchen that's stoked at the end of the week. You're responsible for your own breakfast and dinners. You'll also find a laundry room and the communal showers here on the ground floor. Each floor above has 8 rooms divided between the 2 towers. Every dorm room has its own air conditioning, toilet plus sink, bed, mini fridge, closet, and a balcony. You all will have access to the weight gym in the school's main building. Should any of you wish to leave campus to visit family or anything else, you are to inform me or another staff member before you leave, and you must carry your student ID so you can get back on campus. You are all expected to be back in the dorms by the 10 p.m. curfew. If you plan to stay off campus overnight, you are required to fill out a form. "Any questions?" asked Vlad after he gave the student a short tour of the ground floor. "How are the dorm rooms going to be divided up, Sensei? Are we going to be separated by gender?" asked Rin politely, as he stood next to the boxes of his things. "No, Nezu wants to test several different dorm styles. Class 1 is separated by gender. Nezu assigned your dorm rooms himself. You can find your room assignments on the whiteboard on the wall over there," replied Vlad, pointing at one of the walls. Izuku and the other students looked at the room assignments. While he was looking at the board, Izuku felt an arm wrap around his shoulders. "Looks like we're neighbors, Izuku. I hope we get along very well," spoke Setsuna as she whispered sultry into Izuku's ear. Izuku covered his face with his hand, trying to hide the fact that his face was turning hot rod red. Setsuna stepped back from Izuku, laughed into her hand. "Yeah, looks like I'm next to you, Setsuna," spoke Pony as she hugged the green-haired girl. "Bummer nobody else is on my floor. At least I'm in the room above Izuku," spoke Kami, lamenting her room placement. "You're free to always hang out in my room," spoke Pony, trying to cheer her fellow American up. Yanagi suddenly appeared right beside Izuku, startling the boy. "I'll also be your neighbor. Please take care of me," spoke Yanagi as she bowed respectfully. "Why yes, please take care of me as well," replied Izuku as he mirrored her bow. "If you have any other questions, my room is here on the ground floor." "Oh, that reminds me," spoke Vlad before sticking 2 fingers in his mouth and whistle. Woof woof. Baked out a dark green bulldog bounded into the room and took a spot beside Vlad, a collar with bolts around its neck. Vlad petted his dog much to its joy. "They look so alike," thought the students, looking at the similarities between their teacher and his dog. "I'd like you all to meet my dog Frank." And before you ask, he ran into someone with a quirk that changes color. That's everything I needed to say. You're all free to start moving in and feel free to explore the campus, just make sure to be back by curfew, finished Vlad as he left the room, Frank right on his heels. "Come on, if we help each other, we can all be moved in quicker," spoke Pony, not noticing her wrong word course. The students all started to grab their things and followed the enthusiastic American. Setsuna laughed as Izuku tried his best to correct Pony's word choice without dying from embarrassment. "You Class 1B dorms the Bastion." With everyone helping, it didn't take long to move everyone's boxes to their respective rooms. The students all unpacked their own things, as nobody wanted people who they just met to be unpacking their private stuff. It didn't take too long for Izuku to unpack his things. He had only brought some of his stuff, clothes, his computer, his console with some of his favorite games, decorations for the room, a copy of his mom's cookbook, plenty of notebooks, and his training gear. Altogether, it only took up 5 boxes. He wasn't too worried if he forgot something, as it would only take a quirk 30-min train ride to get home. Just as he finished placing the last of his posters up on the wall, someone knocked on his door. Izuku walked over to answer the door, revealing Kami dressed in jeans and a simple shirt that had a smirking man in a cloak with energy that read "You can certainly try" in the palm of his hand. "Hey Izuku, you're all done moving in?" asked Kami. Izuku stepped out of his room, closing his door behind him as he responded. "Why yes, I'm finished. Want to head to the support department now," responds Izuku with only slight stuttering. "Sure, I already got the directions to the support department from Vlad sensei. Let's go," spoke Kami, holding out a piece of paper that had a hand-drawn map. UA main building. The 2 students walked side by side through the halls of UA's main building, heading to the support department. Kami and Izuku spoke back and forth, with Izuku asking about California, more about her quirk, and also speculating about what UA had in store for them. Eventually, they arrived at a heavy-looking reinforced metal door that had a sign next to it marking it as the support studios. Izuku reached for the door handle. Boom. For the second time that day, Izuku was caught in an explosion. As he recovered, he felt 2 soft objects on his back and another soft but heavy weight on his chest. Once he could see again, he discovered 2 things. 1, there was a girl with pink hair laying on top of him, and 2nd, his head was resting on Kami's breasts. While Izuku was busy imitating a tomato, the girl on 2 of him had recovered. "Oh, customers," spoke the girl as she looks up at Izuku, showing off her crosshair-like eyes and her manic smile. "Hatsum, cough, you blew up the support studio with that device. What were you thinking?" yelled Powerloader, waving smoke out of his face. The teacher noted the 3 students' position. First midnight, now this. The kid's lucky. Or maybe cursed, thought Powerloader. "Look, Sensei, we got customers. They're probably here to request some super sweet babies. Can I handle this, please?" shouted out Hatsum as she jumped to her feet excitedly. She turned to the teacher, begging. Izuku, in the meantime, had stood embarrassed and worried Kami would be mad at him. "I'm so sorry, Kami. Are you all right?" spoke Izuku, offering a hand, concern and embarrassment clear in his tone. "I'm all good and no need to apologize, not like you caused the explosion," responded Kami nonchalantly as she took his offered hand. "Sorry about that." Hatsum decided to activate a deceive without doing a test run first. "You 2 are from Vlad's class, right? What do you need?" asked Powerloader, kindly leading them inside the studio, which had dozens of little flying drones currently cleaning up after the explosion. "I was wondering if I could add some equipment to my costume," asked Kami. Hatsum was bouncing on her feet, her manic smile widening at Kami's words. What kind of equipment are you thinking about? Asked Powerloader. Kami pulled Izuku over to her and had him show Powerloader her entry in his notebook. Izuku explained the equipment and ideas he had to Powerloader, who was taking his own notes. Let's see here, utility belt with pretty standard gear, custom gas grenades, and mines that can use your quirk. What weapon would you want? Questioned Powerloader, looking over his notes, already thinking on how to fabricate the devices. I'm not really trained with weapons. I was thinking of something collapsible and easy to use. So like a baton or maybe a bow staff, responded Kami, not certain what would be best. We'll make both for you since they're relatively easy to make, so you can see which works best for you. The other requests are all doable, but we'll need to take some measurements for the belt and some of the other changes, explained Powerloader. Kami nodded in agreement. Hatsum, take her measurements and help her design a utility belt. Make sure to take her requests into account and don't cause trouble, spoke Powerloader sternly, not wanting another explosion. On it, responded Hatsum, quickly grabbed Kami's wrist and began dragging the girl away. Thanks for the help, Izuku. I'll see you back at the drums, K, spoke Kami in English as she was dragged into an adjacent room. What about you? You have any requests? Asked Powerloader, glance at the doorway when he heard metal shifting and Mei laughing. No, I don't have any requests, Sensei. I was just here to help out Kami. I'll be heading back to the dorms now, responded Izuku politely. Powerloader just shrugged his shoulders. All right, then have a good rest of your day. I got to make sure Hatsum isn't going overboard, spoke Powerloader, walking toward the adjacent room. Izuku quietly left the support studio, a warm feeling in his chest from helping a classmate. UA Class 1B Dorms, the Bastion. When Izuku made it back to the common room of the dorms, he found it empty, bearing Setsuna and Ryuko, who walked in from upstairs at the same time he had come in from the front door. Hey Izuku, weren't you supposed to be at the support department with Kami? Or were you just that excited to see me again, you naughty boy? Asked Setsuna as she neared him, purposely swaying her hips with a massive teasing grin on her face. It's not like tea that they need to do some measurements, so see, Kami said I should come back, hurriedly explained Izuku, red as a tomato at Setsuna words. The short shorts and the tight-fitting Ryukyu shirt Setsuna was wearing was not making it any easier for Izuku. Setsuna laughed at his reaction. You're just too easy to mess with, spoke Setsuna. When her laughter died down, she slung her arm over his shoulder and drew him closer, her action causing his expression to magnify tenfold. Calm down, I don't want you faint like with midnight. Well, at least not yet, that is, I might do that later. For now, Yanagi and I were planning on cooking dinner for everyone, continued Setsuna, gesturing to Yanagi, who had been quietly observing him with her unique posture. Hello, Yanagi-san. Would you too like some help with the cooking? Spoke Izuku, trying to ignore the feeling of Setsuna's body pressed into his side. You know how to cook? Asked Setsuna, looking at him, one of her eyebrows raised. Oh, only a little. I mainly just helped my mom, explained Izuku quietly. We appreciate your offer of assistance and graciously accept. Working together will make our endeavor more expedient. Thank you, Midoriya, spoke Yanagi, eloquently, her hands moving gracefully as she spoke. Setsuna and Izuku stared at the quiet gray-haired girl. It took a moment before they processed her words. All right, then let's get started, spoke Setsuna as she, Izuku, and Yanagi all entered the kitchen. They took stock of their ingredients and decided what they were going to make. Kami had returned as they were preparing the kitchen. The American girl was covered in soot and grease. She wordlessly passed by them to go get cleaned up. As the three busily began cooking dinner, the other students filtered into the living room. Soon after, their classmates started to argue about what they would watch on the TV. The argument grew distracting as Kaibara, Tsubaraba, and Rin argued back and forth on what to watch. The three fought over the remote as Pony simply watched the three argue, not having enough confidence in her Japanese to intervene. The argument stopped when Setsuna's disembodied hand snatched the remote from them. All right, how about you deal with this after we eat, because the food's ready, spoke Setsuna surprisingly sternly. Pony was sent to go get Kami. Once they returned, everyone proceeded to sit at the dinner table and Yanagi served the food. The meal went by quickly, and after a few thank you most everyone left to return to their rooms. Izuku, feeling that he hadn't really helped enough with the cooking, had volunteered to do the dishes. "Thank you, Izuku, that's so sweet," spoke Setsuna in Izuku's ear despite the fact that she was across the room. Izuku felt a quick feeling on his cheek. One of Izuku's hands shot to his face. Izuku was torn between embarrassment and wonder as Setsuna's mouth flew back to the rest of her body, somehow laughing dispute the fact it wasn't connected to her lungs. Setsuna stepped into the elevator and gave him a wink just as the elevator door closed. "She going to make my heart burst if she keeps that up." But that was the first time a girl kissed my cheek. Not counting Mom, thought Izuku as he calmed down and started to wash the dishes. But when he reached for a towel to dry the first plate, it floated off the holder and the plate was pulled out of his hand. That's when he noticed Ryuko moving to stand next to him. "I wish to offer my assistance to repay you early kindness," spoke Ryuko as she avoided eye contact, her tone flat. "Oh, sure, thank you, why Yanagi," responded Izuku. The two teens continued cleaning the dishes together. Izuku was surprised that he was so relaxed and comfortable around Yanagi. Izuku smiled contently to himself, enjoying this quiet moment and the warm feeling in his chest, not noticing how the girl beside him kept stealing glances at him, the very edges of her lips curving slightly upward in a nearly unnoticeable smile. Bua main building. Izuku's morning started with his normal run followed by a workout in the school's gym, after which he showered and ate breakfast with his classmates. The day was filled with ordinary school topics. The only difference was they were being taught by pro heroes. Lunch had been a tense affair as his friends stared down Bakugo when he entered the cafeteria. The glare Bakugo focused solely on Izuku clearly showed how much the blonde wanted to beat Izuku and his friends into the ground. Luckily, Vlad sensei along with Midnight had decided to eat their lunches in the cafeteria. When Bakugo noticed the teachers, he just angrily sat on the other side of the cafe alone by himself. Most of Class 1A sat amongst themselves not too far from Class 1B. After that stressful lunch, Izuku along with the rest of his class eagerly awaited the beginning of their basic hero training class. The room was full of chatter as the students discussed what they could be doing and which hero would be teaching them. "I am here, coming through the door like a hero," yelled All Might as he burst into the room dramatically. "It's All Might, I thought he'd be teaching the upperclassmen," spoke Juzo, clearly happy at the prospect of being taught by the #1 hero. "He's gonna be our teacher this year, this is going to be awesome," commented Setsuna, showing off her sharp teeth with a big smile. "Ah yeah, he's definitely going to make us into manly heroes," yelled out Tetsu, fist clenched and accidentally activating his quirk in his excitement. "That's not his normal costume. Is it an older style?" asked Kanoko quietly in awe of the #1 hero. "Yeah, that's his Silver Age costume," answered Kendo as All Might stands behind the podium. "Welcome to the most important class at UA High. Think of it like heroing 101 here. You will learn the basics of being a pro and what it means to fight in the name of good. Let's get into it," started All Might, posing heroically as he reveled a card that read Battle. "Today's lesson will pull no punches, battle training, but one of the keys of being a hero is looking good," continued All Might as he pointed toward briefcases coming out of the wall. "These were designed for you based on your quirk registration forms and the requests you sent in before school started. Now get yourselves suited up and then meet me at Training Ground Beta," finished All Might, striking his iconic hero pose.
"Yes, sir," responded the students as they eagerly went to grab their costumes and left to quickly go get changed.
Training Ground Beta. The boys of Class 1B stood together in front, All Might waiting for the girls to arrive so the exercise could begin. While the boys waited, Izuku had taken out his hero notebook and added his classmates' costumes to their entries in his notebook. One common critique he could see with many of the boys' costumes is a lack of storage for first aid supplies, as they would be useful for patching up not just yourself, but also other heroes and civilians. Izuku's hero costume consisted of a green full-body jumpsuit that his mother had made. Yua had the suit reinforced with Kevlar armor for added protection. He had a red utility belt that contained medical supplies, food, water, and a pair of specialized handcuffs. He also wears elbow and knee pads, along with gloves and his favorite red boots. He has a respirator with a makeshift smile on it that resembles All Might's smile, and Izuku wears a hood with long ear protrusions that look like a pair of rabbit ears. Hero analysis for the future #14 Yua Class 1B. Yosutsu Oasis hero costume consists of a baggy full-body suit, its collar passing his chin. He wears shoulder pads and a bag on his belt in which he keeps various items to aid his quirk. Senkaibara's hero costume consists of a windbreaker, with rings around the base of the neck and arms. Over this, he wears a large trench coat and gloves. Toguro Kamakiri's hero costume consists of a large dark cloak, plain black trousers, and boots. He has a mask around his eyes and a zigzag pattern on his shirt. Shihei Kiriwaro's hero costume consists of a simple black jumpsuit with light shoes and a large wristband on his left arm with 3 rectangular indentations. Jiroda Shishida's hero costume consists of a regular pair of pants, no shirt, and a pair of stylized goggles in place of his normal glasses. He also wears a specialized collar that monitors his vitals. Kosei Tsubiraba's hero costume consists of a simple, light-colored jacket with matching pants, a dark shirt underneath, and he wears large boots with cylindrical shapes on the soles. Tetsutetsu's hero costume consists of a dark green jumpsuit cut off just below his chest, with some small, silver-rimmed holes in the lower section of his baggy pants and black boots with metal soles, heels, and front plating. He has steel straps over his shoulders and under his arms, made up of multiple pieces, which connect at a red oval in the center of his chest, with 2 thinner bands around his biceps and a small plate on either side of his waist. He also wears a metal jaw guard around his face with the letters Phi stamped on a plate on each side of his face. Manga's hero costume consists of a black shirt with light-colored sleeves and light pants covered by a series of ink bottle-like pieces of armor around his torso and legs. He wears a belt with manga panels, elbow-under-length gloves, and his mask resembles a manga page template. Huryu Rin's hero costume consists of light-colored knee-high boots, a dark vest with white clouds across it, and a collar that covers his chin. He has a belt tied around his waist with pouches on the side, and he also wears large gloves and a visor on his head. His outfit reminds me of a Jiangshi. Kujiro Bando's hero costume consists of a pale, slightly baggy suit. Around his neck, wrists, and waist, he wears circular accessories which resemble the lower part of the cap of a bottle of glue, and around his ankles slightly thinner, taller versions of these. Juzo Hanuki's hero costume consists of a dark bodysuit with a set of armor over the top and a mask that covers the face. Juzo's helmet is more round and elliptical, tinted black with orange lines supporting the sides. The helmet does not cover his entire head. Some tufts of hair around the back of his head and chin are still visible. His chest plate is made up of 3 pieces which are held on by 2 thick metal straps going over his shoulders, along with a jewel-shaped plate supported between them. He wears orange vambraces and plates placed over his thighs, calves, and upper arms. He also sports a pair of elevated, green and orange boots with pipe-like shafts on his feet, white gloves on his hands, and white knee pads. It looks like a very Tog costume, but I feel something more lightweight would work better for him, since it won't impede his speed. Perhaps it could also be streamlined to reduce drag for when he swims through the material he's softened. Hey, you guys are looking heroic. Love the bunny ears, Izuku. Spoke Setsuna as she and the other female classmate exited the tunnel. Her voice drew all the guys' attention. Several of the guys were not subtle as they checked out the girls. As for Izuku, he decided to record the girls' costumes in an attempt to keep himself from fainting on the spot. however some of his thoughts leaked into the entries. Itsuka wears a turquoise knee-length kippao, over which she has a black double-breasted corset, ending just below her breasts. She also sports black short pants under the kippao. For accessories, she wears a loose brown utility belt around her hips, a satchel attached at the back, a thin black domino mask around her eyes, and white-heeled navy blue boots with wide vamps that reach down to her toes, filled in with white slips. Her costume really shows off her beautiful yet toned physique. She must have worked very hard. Ibara's hero costume consists of a plain white robe and black knee-high boots. It is a simple outfit that makes her look like she stepped out of a Renaissance painting in a museum. Yui's hero costume consists of a simple red bodysuit with a white collar trim, a matching V pattern running over her chest and around her upper arms, which also includes a short white skirt with a red design at the front, dipping so it follows the one in her chest. She wears plain vambraces, as well as a hat which resembles the front of a baseball cap, colored red with white U-shaped lines around the sides, with a metal piece resembling a fin attached at the back of the strap around her head. She has a belt at her waist and straps around her shoulders, what appears to be an oval-shaped gemstone set between them on her chest, each adorned with small pouches. I really like this costume. It reminds me of the old Ultra 7 series. Yui, despite her neutral demeanor, looks. I feel like she is actually very nervous. I want to help, but how? Ponies wears a horse halter around her head with a lead rope dangling from the back, and her outfit resembles a jockey uniform, consisting of an orange skin-tight shirt with paler markings around her chest and stomach, with matching colored pants, along with a pair of fingerless gloves. She wears belts secured around her collarbone, biceps, and lower torso, and boots that not only guard her hooves but also have stirrups attached on either side. Her costume fits well with her quirk and appearance. It's uniquely pony and looks great on her. Kanoko's hero costume consists of a turtleneck dress with long sleeves and furred cuffs, which is decorated with a red and white fly agaric pattern, matching the one on her mushroom cap-shaped hat. She wears pale pink knee-high boots with thick tan soles and frilled shafts, patterned with the same fly agaric as her dress, and around her waist is a dark brown belt with a large golden buckle. Her costume reminds me of a witch out of some fairy tale, but I don't remember the witch from the book being so cute. Ryoko's hero costume consists of a white, knee-length kimono with a furred collar, 3 dark straps around her waist, knee-high socks, and a black mask that covers her face from the bridge of her nose down. Her costume gives her an ethereal feeling, like some otherworldly beauty. Kami's hero costume consists of a simple black catsuit with blending patterned lines and a zipper running down the middle, left slightly down. She wears a pair of white gloves with cat claws and white-heeled knee-high boots patterned with gray lines, as well as a loose black collar lined with metallic plates. She also wears a white utility belt and some tactical rigging around one of her thighs that hold her collapsible weapons. Lastly, she has a white and black tail along with a black communication device that resembles cat ears on top of her head, perhaps paying homage to a cat-themed hero. Altogether, she looks like a perfect mixture of beauty and cuteness. Setsuna's hero costume consists of a blue, scaly mask over her eyes, a simple bodysuit with a matching design, and black knee-high boots. She wears fingerless gloves with orange, 3-piece wrist guards, and a belt around her waist with what looks to be a jewel embedded into the center. She looks so mature and, "I never expected that your comments would be so sweet, Izuku," spoke Setsuna in a teasing tone, her voice snapping Izuku out of his thoughts. The girl was standing beside him looking at his notebook. Izuku jumped in surprise and embarrassment, caused his notebook to go flying. I'm sorry. I just, stuttered Izuku, flustered at his predicament. "Setsuna, stop it," spoke Kendo sternly as she and the others approached with Izuku's notebook. Setsuna shrugged, a bit disappointed that she could not tease Izuku further. But she was all smiles a moment later. "Here is your journal, Midoriya-san," spoke Ryoko politely as she used her quirk to float his notebook into his hands. "Thank you, Yanagi-san." replied Izuku as he put his notebook away. By the way, you're a very good artist, spoke Kendo, complimenting the sketches she saw in the notebook. However, her cheeks had a slight red hue to them. Izuku, I love your costume. I especially like the bunny ears, they're so cute, spoke Pony in English. Her mood was more bubbly than normal as she commented on his hood. She brings up a good question. Why do you have rabbit ears on your costume? Asked Kami, her words causing most of the class to focus on Izuku. Young Midoriya, I know you're a fan, but you're way too obvious, thought All Might, looking at Izuku's costume specify the large grin on his mask and the protrusions on his hood that to All Might resembled his own hair. They're supposed to be like Mirko's ears. She's the first hero I ever meet in person. It was back when she was still a sidekick. Ever since then I've been a fan of her, responded Izuku, rubbing the back on his head as he recalled getting his first hero autograph. That's hella sweet. I'm a big fan of the wild pussycats. That's why I added these, Naya, spoke Kami, showing off the tail and ears by striking a pose like the cat-themed hero team. I'm pretty sure I almost died from cuteness just now, thought Izuku, a blush on his face. Listen up. They say clothes make the pros, young ladies and gentlemen, and behold, you are the proof. Take this to heart from now on. You are all heroes in training, spoke All Might, getting the class's attention. Look at you, you're getting me all revved up. You all look so cool, spoke All Might, complimenting the teens. Now shall we get started, you bunch of zygotes? Let's move on to combat training, continued All Might, striking a pose. Now most of the villain fights you see on the news take place outside, but statistical speaking run-ins with the more dastardly villains take place indoors. Think about it: backroom deals, home invasions, secret underground lairs. The truly intelligent villains stay hidden in the shadows. For this training exercise you'll be split into teams of good guys and bad guys and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles, explained All Might. Kanoko raised her hand tentatively to get All Might's attention. Isn't this a little bit too advanced? Questioned Kanoko nervously. The best training is what you get on the battlefield. But remember, you can't just punch a robot this time, you're dealing with actual people now, replied All Might, pulling out a script. The situation is this: villains have stolen a nuclear missile and hidden it somewhere in their hideout. The heroes must try and foil their plans. To do that, the good guys either have to catch the evildoers or recover the Miss Slee. Likewise, the villains win if they protect the Miss Slee or capture the heroes. Time is limited, and we'll choose teams by drawing lots, explained All Might as he pulled out a box of lots. Why are we drawing lots of all things? Asked Tetsu, confused, along with Manga, whose head had become a question mark. Think about it, a pro often has to team up with heroes from other agencies on the spot. So you have to be prepared to work alongside someone you may not know anything about, explained Izuku, the class understanding his reasoning. Ah, I get. Sorry for interrupting, All Might Sensei, apologized Tetsu with a bow. No sweat, let's draw, spoke All Might with a thumbs up. Teams. Team A, Izuku and Kanoko. Team B, Yosutsu Awase and Rieko Yanagi. Team C, Kosai Tsuburaba and Juzo Honuki. Team D, Kajuro Bando and Manga Fukudashi. Team E, Itsuka Kendo and Setsuna Takich. Team F, Ibara Shiozaki and Jiroda Shishida. Team G, Tetsu and Yui Kodai. Team H, Pony Tsunatori and Tagaru Kamakiri. Team I, Senkai Bara and Shihai Kirwaro. Team J, Kami and Rin. Now for the matchups, spoke All Might as he pulled out 2 more lot boxes to decide the matchups. Matchups. Team A Heroes vs Team J Villains. Team E Heroes vs Team I Villains. Team F Heroes vs Team G Villains. Team B Heroes vs Team C Villains. Team D Heroes vs Team H Villains. Alright, the teams are set. First up, Teams A and J, follow me. Everyone else head to the monitoring room, ordered All Might. Yes, sir, replied the students, most left heading to the monitoring room. The remaining 4, Izuku, Kanoko, Kami, and Rin, followed All Might to the test building. Izuku, spoke Kanoko, looking down, so her costume's hat blocked the view of her face completely. Yes, Komori-san, spoke Izuku, not noticing that All Might was paying attention to his conversation. Do you really think I look cute in my costume? Asked Kinoko quietly. Izuku blushed bright red. Why, yes I do, responded Izuku, quietly looking anywhere but her. Kinoko placed her hands on her cheeks as she blushed. A smile broke out on her face and warmth spread in her chest at his words. Kids got better luck with the ladies than I ever did at that age, thought All Might. He chuckled quietly as he watched his flustered successor interact with his shy classmate. After a few more minutes, they made it to the test building. All right, villains, you have a 5 minutes head start. Heroes, you're not allowed to enter the test building. But besides that, you're free to use the 5 minutes as you wish. Oh, and here are copies of the building's layout. I shall call out when you can enter, spoke All Might, handing the teens the building blueprints. Kami and Rin immediately entered the building and All Might left for the monitor room. What else should we do? Asked Kinoko. Izuku looked over the building blueprints and then pulled his hero notebook seemingly out of nowhere. Kami will make this difficult, especially with her new traps. She could use her quirk to stall us until time runs out. It will also make us easier to capture. There's no guarantee my mask will protect me from her quirk. As for Rin, all through he is formidable, he could easily be taken out by your quirk or stalled, responded Izuku, reasoning through a plan as he analyzed the area. Wouldn't her quirk also affect her teammate? Commented Kinoko, hoping to contribute. You're right, they'll most likely split up in that case. Kami will stall us on the first or second floor, while Rin guards the bomb. So if we, spoke Izuku as he descended into muttering. He suddenly slammed his notebook shut. I have a plan. I'm sorry, but you won't really need to use your quirk. However, it won't work without you. Will you trust me? Spoke Izuku, offered out his hand as he looked at Kinoko with an expression that made her heart skip a beat and butterflies to flutter in her stomach. Yes, I will, responded Kinoko. Izuku took her hand and started to pull her across the street as he began telling her the plan. In the monitoring room. The monitoring room was dark, and the students eagerly watched the screens that are showing their classmates. Most attention was on the villains as they set the bomb on the 4th floor, after which Kami left the room and started to set up mines and traps all over the lower floors, before she set up an ambush near the staircase connecting the 1st and 2nd floors. Hey, what are Midoriya and Komori doing? Questioned Tetsutetsu, drawing everyone's attention. The class watched in confusion as they watched the hero team climb the fire escape of the building across the street from the test building. But after a few moments, they moved back to the front door. What are you up to, Izuku? Spoke Setsuna softly to herself as she tried to deduce what Izuku was planning. Start. The heroes may enter the villain's lair, announced All Might as he pulled out a notepad and pencil. I can't play favorites, young Midoriya. I have to judge your performance just like any other student, thought All Might as his eyes focused on his successor. Test building. Kami became tense when All Might started the test. She hid on the 2nd floor waiting for the heroes to arrive. Bang. The sound of a door slamming open on the 1st floor caught her attention, and a rush of air blew through the stairwell and the hallway. But she didn't hear anything, no footsteps, no talking, none of her traps were triggered. She was about to let Rin know what was going on when... Shatter. What? Get up here, Quiga, spoke Rin, panic in his voice before his communication cut off. Kami sprang from her hiding spot and started to run for the stairs. Hurry, Rin has been captured, announced All Might. Kami kept running, trying to make it to the room they hid the missile in. The missile has been secured. Hero team wins, announced All Might, his words making Kami stop running. How? Asked Kami to herself, confused as to what just happened. Several minutes earlier, Izuku dragged Kinoko up the fire escape after he explained the plan to Kinoko. So once we get into the room, I'll distract the Rin while you secure the missile. That's the plan. Any questions? Spoke Izuku, wrapping up his explanation as they stopped moving up the fire escape. How are we going to know where they placed the missile? Asked Kinoko. Izuku simply pointed at the test building across the street. When Kinoko looked, She saw easily spotted the missile through a large bank of windows. She could even see Kami leave the room, and Rin locking the door and placing something near the door. He then moves debris that was spread throughout the room in between the door and the missile before choosing a spot and standing guard. Kanoko looked back at Izuku, who was wearing a knowing smile. "Let's go beat those villains," spoke Kanoko, also breaking out into a smile. The two quickly moved back across the street. At All Might's signal, Kanoko loosened the front door of the building, grabbed a brick from the ground, and then ran back over to Izuku, who was positioned underneath the windows that lead to the missile was in. With a bit of hesitation, Kanoko climbed on to Izuku's back. She wrapped her legs around Izuku and wrapped an arm around his neck. "Ready?" asked Izuku, glancing back at Kanoko with that same look that set her heart skipping. "Why, yes," answered Kanoko with a nod, a blush on her face from feeling Izuku's physique. Izuku drew on one for all, focusing the power into his toes, and with a leap Izuku carried them both high above the wind. His leap kicked up, making the front door slam open. Bang! The two heroes in training rose high over the building. As gravity took hold of them and they began to fall, Izuku positioned both his arms behind them in a position much like Bakugo's. But Izuku's fingers were in a flicking position. As they neared the bank of windows to the Miss Lee room, Kanoko threw the brick as hard as she could. This broke the window. Shatter. Izuku, using Ofa, flicked a single finger from each hand. The burst of air that followed the action propelled the duo through the remains of the window and shredded part of Izuku's gloves, flinching as he used his legs to land but ended up sliding. Kinko hopped off Izuku's back. Their dynamic and unexpected entrance room surprised Rin. "What? Get up here, Quiga," spoke Rin as he grew scales all over his body. However, he was interrupted when Izuku, who had used another pair of finger flicks to shoot himself directly at Rin, shoulder charged his classmate into a concrete wall hard enough to dent and crack the wall. This knocked the air out of Rin and stunned him. "Huryu Rin has been captured," announced All Might. Rin looked to see that Izuku had wrapped the capture tape around one of his arms, before he could even hope about Kami showing up. "The missile has been secured. Hero team wins," announced All Might. Rin's gaze snapped to the Miss Lee to see Kanoko's hand on the missile. "Guess this is my lose this time," commented Rin, holding onto his ribs as he stood up, Kanoko helping both him and Izuku stand. Monitoring room. The four students returned to the monitor room and were immediately bombarded by questions and comments. "That was so manly," spoke Tetsu, pumped up by the fight. "Yeah, you guys were awesome," commented Oase. "Your entry was quite dynamic," complimented Yanagi as she moved to silently stand beside Izuku. "It looked super heroic," added Tsuburaba. "I wasn't expecting you'd do anything like that," spoke Setsuna, clearly impressed given her tone. "You certainly set the bar high, Sir Midoriya," spoke Jiroda as he moved to help Midoriya take a seat. "Are you all right?" asked Kendo, concerned as she looked at his shredded gloves and the four purple misshaped fingers. Cough. "You two should go see Recover-A-Girl right away," spoke All Might, concerned over his students. "If it's all right, Sensei, I'd like to hear the review before leaving." "If that is okay," requested Rin politely. All Might contemplates the request for a moment. "Very well, but you both must go to the infirmary right after, understood," spoke All Might sternly. The two boys nodded in acceptance. "Then can anyone tell me who earned the MVP spot?" asked All Might as he looked at the rest of the class. Setsuna was the first to raise her hand. "The MVP spot clearly goes to Izuku. He discovered the location of the missile, accurately predicted what the villains would do. He then came up with a plan that would quickly secure the missile with as little combat and collateral damage as possible. Not to say the others didn't do a good job, Izuku was just several steps ahead of them," explained Setsuna in detail. "You're 100% correct. Young Midoriya has shown exceptional strategic thinking, and above all he remained focused on the objective. But well done all of you," spoke All Might, praising not just Izuku but the other students. A few more students made comments and asked questions. after which Rin and Izuku made their way to the infirmary, where Recovery scolded Izuku for cracking a few of Rin's ribs. Once they finished their treatment, they returned to watch the remaining matches. For the second match, the hero team consisting of Itsuka Kendo and Setsuna Takage defeated Senkaibara and Shihei Kirwaro by distracting the villains, allowing Setsuna to secure the missile with one of her disembodied hands. The following match between Ibara Shiozaki and Jiroda Shishida vs Tetsutetsu and Yui Kodai was very close, as it almost ended by time running out. Yui had barricaded the entrances using her quirk, but Ibara's quirk proved overwhelming, as when the heroes couldn't get in through the normal entrances, she used her vines to burst in from the floor below them, restraining the villains long enough to allow Jiroda to secure the missile. The first villain victory was the match between Yosutsu Awase and Ryaiko Yanagi vs Kosai Tsuburaba and Juzo Honuki. Tsuburaba had made a maze of air walls and baited the heroes into a trap made by Honuki, who trapped them in the softened floor, and then hardened it again, trapping their legs in concrete. From there, capturing the hero team was easy. The last match between the heroes Kojiro Bondo and Manga Fukadashi vs the villains Pony Tsunatori and Togaru Kamakiri ended with another victory for the villain. Pony dramatically played the part of villainess, being loud and overdramatic to draw the heroes to her. Once they were in place, Pony pinned the two heroes in place by rapidly firing horns to suppress them. While they focused on Pony, they failed to notice when Kamakiri stuck from behind, capturing Bondo. When Manga was forced to engage Kamakiri in melee, Pony attacked when his focus shifted. Throughout the matches, Izuku was analyzing his classmates, rapidly writing notes and drawing sketches in his hero notebook. Pony and Kanoko seemed to enjoy Izuku's antics, and they happily watched him mutter away, predicting the outcome of each with scary accuracy. However, Kendo had to stop his muttering spree when it seemed to be annoying some of their classmates. That a warp, super work, you all really stepped up to the plate, and we didn't have any major injuries besides young Midoriya and young Rin. You should be proud. Excellent first day of training all around. That's all for now, folks. Now watch how a pro exits, like he's got somewhere to be. Spoke All Might, praising his students before he sprinted away, leaving the class in awe of his dramatic exit. Teachers' offices. The teacher's office was bathed in the glow of the afternoon sun, a light breeze entering through an open window. All Might, now in his oversized yellow suit, entered the near-empty room. Only Vlad was in the room, sat behind his desk, typing away on his laptop. "Hey Vlad, how are you?" spoke All Might, greeting his fellow teacher with a wave. "Oh, hello All Might, I'm doing well. How did your first time teaching go?" responded Vlad politely, turning to give All Might his full attention. "It was nerve-wracking for me, and I was barely able to hold my muscle form. Besides that, not too bad, only Midoriya and Rin needed a visit to Recover Girl." The students performed well for their first hero class. "Here are the recordings of the lesson that you asked for," spoke All Might, handing Vlad a flash drive. "Thank you, All Might. If you run into issues or just need some tips on teaching, feel free to ask," offered Vlad as he plugged the drive into his laptop to start downloading the video and All Might's notes. "I appreciate that, Vlad. By the way, where is everyone else?" asked All Might, gesturing to the empty desks. "Most are heading out to start patrolling. Presentnik is heading for his radio show. Powerloader is dealing in his words, the pink-haired menace. Eraserhead is probably sleeping somewhere before his patrol, and Midnight left with Midoriya a moment ago to deal with an issue in the locker rooms," explained Vlad before taking a sip from the mug on his desk. "Is that wise?" questioned All Might, not sure if leaving Midoriya alone with Midnight is the best idea. "He'll be fine, maybe. But speaking of Midoriya, I wanted to ask why you have such a special interest in him," asked Vlad King. All Might grew nervous and had to rapidly come up with an explanation. "I just see great potential in him. He has the markings of a great hero in him. All he needs is some confidence and control over that quirk of his," replied All Might, hoping that the partial lie would work. But Vlad's expression was draining that hope away. "He's hiding something. He has some kind of connection with Midoriya." He's almost acting like a thought Vlad King as he reached a ludicrous but possible explanation. So he decides to just ask. All Might, tell me, is Midoriya your secret love child or something? Asked Vlad, his tone serious. All Might coughed up blood at Vlad King's words. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. And comment down your opinion on this video. Thanks for stopping by and I'll see you in the next one.